Mr. Chair, we're ready for the live stream has started, so whenever you're ready, please start.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Due to COVID-19, Committee of Adjustment public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx Webinar, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx Webinar, which is moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting with their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. When your item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelists when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time, and at all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Members of the public and applicants are not allowed to use share screen or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we're meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990, as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The committee considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that apply to the property, permissions to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consents to sever properties to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name, address, and email address because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body, in the event of an appeal, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. The hearing procedure is as follows. After first dealing with some deferral matters off the bat to clear the agenda, we will proceed in order based on the item numbers, and in making your submissions where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with the presentation if desired. When the committee does not require presentation, applicants or agents are to advise the chair should they wish to address the committee, and the committee may ask questions of each speaker or of the applicant or agent and take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee, and I will comment, or actually the clock shows in the room, and someone will notice if you're approaching the 5-minute mark, asking you to wrap up. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if being substantially revised in order to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application have been informed of the changes. Then individuals either in support or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they finish their presentations. And when all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues and answer those questions that were raised by the speakers, not to introduce new information, but to respond to the issues raised by the speakers. That will then mark the end of the discussion on the matter. The application is then taken into the committee for a decision. Okay, some housekeeping matters. We have the minutes, I believe, of the October what's the date of the October hearing? That I believe the 28th?
27th.
Okay, close enough. Anyway, the minutes, can I have a motion to approve those minutes, please?
Move approval.
Okay, thank you. Second, thank you, Stan. All in favor? Okay, we have approval of the minutes. Deferral requests. I note on our agenda, we have in the consolidated planning memo, we have items 1, 17, and 31A and B. In addition to those and the additional materials received just yesterday, I see that also items 2 and 3 have requests for deferral from the applicants. And we just learned that item 5 will be requesting a deferral as well. We're advised there's a different speaker than the one on my list. So we'll perhaps go in order and deal with those 6 items. And then there was also a request by transportation for a deferral in item 7, but we can deal with that as we go through that one. So let's first deal with the deferrals.
Mr. Chair,
with everyone's permission.
before we dive into the deferrals, can we just do a quick mic check for Stan to make sure we can hear him?
Of course.
Stan, go ahead.
Check.
Check.
Can you
All
hear
right,
me?
thanks. Yep, perfect. All right, Mr. Chair,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, before we start, did we do declarations of any?
Oh, right. My bad. I forgot to ask, as they typically do at the outset of the meeting, whether any members, panel, or staff have any conflicts of interest to declare or declarations of interest to declare. So at this time on this morning's agenda, does anyone have any declarations to declare? Okay, thank you, Mr. Palmer, for pointing out my omission. Okay, so I guess the first item we're going to deal with on the deferral list is item number 1. And the address is 24D Avenue, and it is on the list with the planning memo items 4 and 6, 6 being a request by the applicants, so it looks like it won't be opposed because it's partially their request. The speaker is Murray Fern.
Yes, good morning,
For the
members.
Good morning, Mr. Fern.
Again, my name is Murray Fern, representing the owners of 24D Avenue. We are asking for a deferral for our proposal. Our project began in September 2020. We received a zoning notice, and for reasons, our project was delayed. And we began again in September of 2022 and submitted for zoning review. The planning department requested us to reduce the floor area and the height of our proposal, which we did. And we received a new zoning notice. And with that new zoning notice, there was 2 additional variances that weren't picked up from the initial zoning review. So in order to proceed with our project, they need to send out new public hearing notices, and therefore we request a deferral from today's hearing. If that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fern. Members, any questions for Mr. Fern? Yeah, we have your memo to staff dated November 1st that you new zoning review revealed 2 variances, like to defer in order to include these new variances. Very reasonable. Members, can I have a motion to defer if there's no questions, Mr. Fern?
I'll move a motion to defer so proper notice can be sent out.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Khmer. I only see one speaker on at a time. Maybe I have to adjust my screen layout. Here we go.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, matters deferred. Thank you, Mr. Fern. Be well. We'll see you here again. Okay, going in order here, the next deferral request, this one was not on the list, but it was in the additional materials. Item number 2, 127 Queens Drive. The agent or speaker is Jim Wallace.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I hope you're all well.
It's just we do see that this was a 2-story east side addition. 2 looked to me like very minor in my notes. 0.4, 0.42 in FSI. We had planning looking for a referral. Urban forestry condition number 2, and it says you'll be requested to redesign. So please, you can explain what happened here.
Yeah, so I will try to be as brief and concise as possible in this deferral request. We submitted a zoning application for a second-story addition over existing garage. There was some minor variances that came back, with one of them requesting an encroachment agreement with the neighbor of 129 Queens because the existing eave encroaches about 0.16 meters over the lot line. Our proposal is a second-story addition over the existing garage, which would essentially push that eave encroachment from 8 feet off the ground to about 18 feet off the ground. We received support from the neighbor. They agreed to the encroachment agreement. We resubmitted for zoning review. That variance came off the table. Item number 3, you can see it's struck out there. However, planning does not support the application. They are recommending a refusal, and I simply cannot deal with the potential of committee refusing this application, where it seems planning wants us to continue to work with them. So I kind of don't have a choice here. I have to do the responsible thing and defer the application so I can continue to work with planning.
Yes, sir. Sounds very reasonable to me. So members, any questions of Mr. Wallace, or can I have a motion to defer this matter? Ms. McCluskey, thank you.
There's no questions. I'll move to approve, or sorry, I'll move to defer the application to continue conversations with planning staff.
Thank you. Seconder for that, Ms. Ruddick, thank you. All in favor? Okay, Mr. Wallace, your matter is deferred. We'll see you here again. Good luck.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day, Phil.
You too. Okay, again, going in order, item number 3. This one again was not on the list, but was a additional material request by Michael Flynn. And on this matter, we do have, so we will weigh in with, we have a number of people on the line ready to make submissions on this on the merits. I see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, including the tag team from the LBNA. So let's first hear from Mr. Flynn, and then we'll weigh in perhaps with a few, if not all, of the neighbors on the line about because we're not about the matter of deferral. Mr. Flynn, good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair. We're requesting a deferral so that we can redesign the application. We intend to eliminate the rear walkout, which will eliminate the variances for length and depth. We intend to change the side yard setback that's in question so that variance would be eliminated. And we intend to reduce the FSI down to a more reasonable number.
Okay, yeah, I see this was for a new detached dwelling with attached garage with 4 variances. Planning was looking for refusal. We have 11 plus objection letters, including the LBNA, and Urban Forestry looking for refusal as well. So seems to me reasonable. Let's just hear if anyone has any questions for you. Of the members, no. If not, I guess let's weigh in with Christine Mercado, who's the president of the LBNA and the first on the speakers list.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we are disappointed that the applicant waited until now, but because we're ready to go, but we'll agree to the deferral. Just for the record, the applicant did reach out yesterday with some ideas, and our goal is to resolve the tree and built form issues to make way for him to build a new home, but not for the purposes of land speculation. So we are hoping that there is a possibility to proceed in good faith on this.
Okay, thank you. I guess we may as well just briefly weigh in with everyone who's bothered to come on the line. The next speaker, Nicola Walenta.
Nicola, you've requested to have your screen on while speaking, so I've gone ahead and moved you to the panelist side. You can now turn on your screen if you'd like to share it. Otherwise, okay, please go forward with your comments.
Yes, good morning. I agree with the deferral. I was ready to go, as were the other 4 people who are going to speak to this matter. But I think the request that came from Michael Flynn is reasonable, and as long as we stay on track with going forward in the right direction.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, very, he's going to redesign. So I assume all these people who've written in and are on the line are not should be happy with. Hopefully, the redesign will be more to their liking. I guess okay. Mr. Scholz is listed as a area resident. If it was listed in the LBNA, I don't think we'd have to weigh in. But
That
Mr.
is
Scholz,
correct, Mr. Chair. I already spoke with Andy during the mic check, and he said that Christine would be speaking for them.
all right. Okay. Next speaker, Alexander Donald. 2 doors away.
Yes, I'm agreeable to a deferral. One small point, when you mentioned the letter of objections, I believe in there is actually about 30 letters of objections.
Yeah, okay. I just made a note when I did my review that we had listed in our bookmark. There might have been some others that came in with the additional, anyway, there's a lot of opposition. Hopefully it's moot because he's going to redesign. So yeah, I had 11 plus the LB&I on our list, but maybe there were some that had additional names attached. So hopefully this is will we have less objection perhaps or perhaps none next time around. And I guess the last speaker is Ron Jameson at number 10 38th Street.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. We also have Stephen Harmelick.
Yes, okay. He's 32 26th Street. Okay, Mr. Harmelick.
Harmelink, you're very close. Thank you.
Okay.
I also agree to the deferral. I do want to make sure, though, that the application to destroy some trees are not going to be acted upon as we wait for the new application.
Okay, we'll hear from Mr. Flynn after we've heard from the last speaker, Ron Jameson. Mr. Jameson?
Good morning, everybody. I also agree with the request for deferral. I believe in most of our letters of objection, I think we're fairly clear about our expectations from a redesign. And so we're happy to see that the applicant is listening to what we've proposed.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, Mr. Flynn, just back to you. Just there was some issue. One of the neighbors mentioned something about injury to trees. What can you?
We will not proceed with any work of any kind.
Okay, thank you.
Until we have gone through committee.
Okay, thank you. Okay, members, motion to defer on that issue. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Kumar?
I'll move a motion so that the applicant can revise the application.
Thank you. Seconded by Ms. McCluskey. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, Mr. Flynn and neighbors, the item has been deferred, and we'll see you here back again once you have done a redesign and hopefully satisfied more of the residents, if not all. Okay, the next item is item number 5. Again, this was not on the list. It was not even in the additional materials, but I was advised by staff this morning of the change in speaker and the fact that they'd be requesting a deferral. So item 5, only one speaker, 17 Farningham Crescent, and the speaker is Brad Abbott.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, Brad Abbott. I'm the architect and representative of the owners, and I was registered to speak. I didn't get any instructions. I don't know. I think it's just administrative issue there, but both the owner and myself were registered to speak. But anyway, we have staff support for the planning, from planning for the addition on the envelope of the house and for the extended length variance, and we have approval from all the neighbors as well. Our problem is that we've got a notice less than a week ago from Forestry recommending refusal due to the removal of trees caused by the variance, which isn't true. We submitted an arborist report when we applied to Committee of Adjustment that recommended some minor injury to a few trees and removal of a private tree. in the front yard. So, but there's no real specifics from forestry on what their issues are, and we've been trying to contact them in the last 6 days. And I just wanted to, on record, to say that I'm a little disappointed that when the arborist report was submitted over a month ago, that we only received this notice of refusal from forestry, you know, with not enough time to negotiate with them or reason with them.
Yeah.
And get them on side. I don't know if your process can be improved in that regard, so that,
Yeah.
you know, we have a slam dunk here for the zoning, yet I'm now losing 3 months of time by this deferral to negotiate on trees.
Yes. Yeah.
And here's another question for you, Mr. Chairman.
So the question is, I'm just wondering if, you know, again, if it's perhaps, I don't know if we want to stand this down. It looks like the application itself is two minor variances. Let me just see. And it would be a shame for that to happen. If you see, they always ask in the alternative. So perhaps, and there are no other neighbors, you have a length variance of under 2 meters. We have nothing from, we have a soffit height of 0.3 of a meter. And planning is on the side. They just want you to hold you to the site plan and elevation drawing. This as it relates to the length, so they have no problems. And planning, as we've learned, we know from planning and from urban forestry that what has to be, this tree has to be affected not by the build, but by the variant, the amount in variance.
Right.
Question is, if the tree was going to, by the rebuild, was going to get destroyed anyway. And you're saying there are no teak trees to be destroyed, but even if it was, it had to be occasioned not by the actual build, but by the amounts and variance, by that extra almost 2 meter extension. I guess it's not affected by the soffit height. So I don't know, maybe we should hold this down, and because I don't know if someone can look at the planning, the forestry letter. They often do that in the alternative. Perhaps they are mentioning a privately owned oak tree
On the neighbor's property, in the middle of the neighbor's backyard.
So the question is, you know, we see, you obviously don't, we see these more than you do. So I don't know if perhaps we can stand this down. I don't know if someone can look into that, because you say you have otherwise a very, you know, looks like you have no neighbors, no one opposed to anything here.
Yes. That's right.
And
if the forestry department wants us to move the house back to save the tree in the front yard, it will endanger another tree in the rear yard, and it will trigger a depth variance that the committee may not approve, whereas now we don't have a depth variance. We only have a length variance.
Yeah, and again, they're only dealing, it doesn't look like there's any public trees. It only looks like there's private trees. So I go out on a limb. I don't think I've done this very often, and suggest that you withdraw your request to defer and proceed with this. I don't think you'd lose necessarily 3 months, because I don't know when staff would be able to get you on the next available agenda. Downtown, it might be 3 months. Up here, you might have some more luck, but even though it could still be a 2 month, which, you know, time is money.
We've been told end of January, early February.
Okay, so with your permission, and perhaps behind the scenes, we can, while we're doing the other application, Mr. Carvalino, who's acting manager today, can look into this matter and perhaps get some more information for the members and not defer this.
Yes, the two trees that
did any of it, let's open it up to the members. Does anyone else have any opinion on this? Along the lines of what I'm stating, or?
Mr. Chair, I would completely concur with your comments. It looks like a straightforward application. And there is an alternative that, should the committee approve, that we impose condition 2, which I think none of us would have a problem with.
Right, we often do. We often do that. Okay, so any other questions or comments, members? Or otherwise, let's, Mr. Brad Abbott, I'll put it back to you to see if you reconsider your motion to defer.
Hey, Chair Palmer here.
Yep.
Also, we have planning conditions which are tied to a site plan. So if we revise the site plan, then we're not meeting planning conditions. So should I make a motion? Or do you want the applicant?
Really, it's not, we don't have it's Mr. Abbott's, I'm not asking the committee to refuse the deferral request, and he's going to withdraw. Maybe he doesn't want to, but it's up to him to withdraw his deferral request because it's not like it was being requested by staff or anything like that in this case.
Okay.
Yes, we'd like to stick to the same site plan.
Yes.
My only question is, can forestry strike down your decision of approval for a tree affected by a building that's as of right?
Yeah, they could. I don't think they would do that. If they appealed, I think they would lose because, like you say, if it's your tree, your application as of right injures the tree, that's not a reason to defer, to refuse. And like I said, we would still be imposing condition number 2. They could technically appeal, but I don't think I've ever heard of. I don't think it's done very often. These applications, if you stick around for the rest of the day, you see on our sheet, there's many applications in alternative. Urban forestry item condition 3 and 5, 5 being a refusal, 2 and 5, 2 and 5. There's many on today's agenda that are in the alternative like that.
Okay,
Anyway,
I just hadn't seen that in my 30 years of experience, so it scared me a bit.
Okay, sir, decision, you want to proceed later and we'll put you back in the hopper and you'll be one of the first ones heard in any event, or do you want to defer?
No, happy to go ahead with what it sounds like your recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on. We have one more deferral to deal with, and then we'll be back to you in short order. Okay, so the last item on our list is item number 1720 Portage Avenue. That's on the list as item on the community planning memo as items reason 2 and 6, 6 being an applicant's request. And I believe we've been advised in materials that he's going to be requesting to make changes to their drawings. And the speaker on that application is.
Good morning.
Hold on a second. A lot of my pages are out of order here. Okay, what's your name, sir?
Pedro Alves, the homeowner.
Okay, welcome, sir.
Thank you. I just looking to defer it just so I can agree with the city planner to make changes, and then we'll be back, I guess.
Okay, very good. Members, any questions for the speaker, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion of deferral? Oh, yes, there it is, Pedro Alves. Anyone ready to make a motion to defer? And on that one, we did have a. Yeah, he says he's going to make changes to their drawing. Members?
Yeah, I'll move for deferral to allow the applicant to revise the application to the satisfaction of planning department.
Okay, thank you. Seconder for that? Oh, everyone, it was a tie. Mishi McCluskey, all in favor? Okay, your application has been approved, Mr. Alves. We'll see you here again. Be well. Okay, so we can now return to the top of the agenda. Items 1, 2, and 3 have been deferred. And we have item, I guess, number 4 is a first application we'll deal with today on the merits. So item number 4 is 21 MURRIE Street. We have a revised page for the agenda on this one. And this is for a detached dwelling with an attached garage and a new rear yard deck. There were 4, there are now 3 variants. We have a revised highlighted sheet. So also the FSI has also been reduced. One of the variances that remain. So we have revised plans, revised revisions, correspondence regarding the revisions. We have supporting materials, a planning justification report, an arborist report. Urban forestry is again, Mr. Abbott looking for conditions 2 and 5. A refusal or item permission to injure a privately owned tree or trees. We have a support petition with 3 signatures. One that doesn't have an address, and then we have 2 letters of opposition from 82 Lake and from 24 MURRIE. We have registered to speak Just trying to find my pages are out of order. Oh, yes. Addison Milne Price, the agent for the applicant, as well as a neighbor from 24 Murray, one of the letters of opposition. And so, welcome. Well, let's hear from the first speaker is the agent, Addison Milne Price.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and fellow committee members. Addison Milne Price, 900 the East Mall, Suite 300. I'll be presenting this application on behalf of the property owner of 21 Murray Street.
Okay.
As you mentioned, the variances I'm proposing have been reduced from those originally sent out on the public notice to satisfy concerns from community planning. Planning staff has no concerns with the revised variances and plans.
Okay. Great. We have I see we have supporting materials. We have a photo study and other planning materials, justification report. So perhaps we can put that on the screen as you make your presentation.
Excellent. First, if I may begin.
Yep.
I have reviewed the urban forestry report dated October 26th that recommends refusal of variance 1 for the proposed FSI. If staff would kindly show the site plan on the screen. I would like to point out that the proposed dwelling, including the front porch, is entirely outside of the tree protection zone of tree number 1. The report states that approval of the requested variances may result in the construction of a driveway that requires the removal of tree number 1. I respectfully disagree with this assertion because none of the variances relate to a driveway or garage. The proposed driveway and garage could be built as of right with no variances requested. Additionally, as I'm sure the committee is aware, a permit from urban forestry will be required for any tree injury or removal, regardless of any conditions imposed by this committee. And as such, we will have to deal with urban forestry after this committee hearing. Condition that ties approval of the variances to a submission of a complete application for a permit to injure or remove a city-owned tree would appropriately address any urban forestry concerns.
Yes.
Now, regarding the variances, variance 1 pertains to the proposed FSI. Note that the floor area of the basement was included in the calculation of GFA for this proposal. As such, the additional massing proposed will be distributed over 3 floors, and the resulting dwelling will be in keeping with the existing character of the neighborhood. The proposed FSI will result in an increase of only 0.14 times FSI or 58.43 square meters of additional GFA over what is permitted as of rights. Furthermore, the proposed dwelling is compliant with the overall building height, length, depth, all required setbacks, and all landscaping requirements, which indicates that the proposed massing is appropriate for the lot upon which it is situated. The proposed FSI will be in keeping with a number of previous approvals for FSI within the neighborhood and along Murray Street, which I can refer to if requested, but I'll move along now for the sake of time. Variance 2, previously variance 3, pertains to the height of the front and rear exterior main walls. Firstly, the proposed overall height is compliant with the overall maximum height, 9.5 meters for a detached house, which demonstrates that the height is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood and will have little to no impact further than what is already contemplated by the zoning bylaw. As illustrated in the photo study provided, dwellings that are similar to the proposal, namely dwellings with slightly taller front main walls, have a significant presence on Murray Street. This proposal will not represent a departure from the existing style along Murray Street. In addition, there have also been a number of approvals for similar and greater exterior main wall heights along Murray Street and within the broader neighborhood, which again, I won't mention now, but I'm happy to go through if requested. Variance 3 pertains to the area of the rear yard deck. The proposed second-story rear platform will only be 2.05 square meters greater than what is proposed as a right, or permitted as a right, sorry. The proposed second-story platform will be relatively center on the main wall, and thus will be set back from both exterior side main walls. This will contribute to mitigating any privacy and overlook impacts. The proposed area of the rear second-story platform will have little to no impact further than what is already contemplated by the bylaw. Through you, Mr. Chair, based on the provided justification, I'm of the opinion that this proposal is minor, represents good planning, and meets the 4 tests under Section 45 of the Planning Act. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Abbott. Right, there is another speaker on this application. Let's first see if anyone has any questions for you. So just to recap, to circle back, because I think that seems to be issue, is this issue about the front yard tree. You're saying your construction is outside the protection zone for that tree, and the tree will be protected.
Yes, that's true. If all of the variances were removed, the tree would still have to be removed based on the driveway, which is not related to a variance.
Okay, and I assume you're happy to provide additional landscaping. I guess not mature trees, but I'm assuming there's going to be a landscape plan. There's going to be trees replanted on the front, and you're going to protect the trees in the back.
Based on the arborist report that was submitted, there's not sufficient area for a tree with the driveway as proposed. However, I anticipate that further discussions with urban forestry will be undertaken prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Okay, and you did mention there are other new construction on the street. How have those front yard trees been affected by that construction as well, to your knowledge?
I'm not aware of any other front yard trees. My research did not include that.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Milne Price? Or if not, we'll go over to Sarah Balicki, the neighbor at 24 across the street, for her comments. Okay, let's hear from Sarah Balicki, and Mr. Milne Price, you'll have a chance to respond.
For me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you, Addison, for speaking as well. My main concern, again, is the tree number 1 that is listed in the tree doctor's report there. And it seems like their letter says that this development, the proposed construction, would need to have this tree removed. I'm also looking, I didn't see sort of the site plan that the building group was sort of proposing, but if I look at the tree site plan that was included in the additional documents, it does see that driveway is clearly, the driveway and the proposed porch is clearly in the tree's outline. So I'm finding it hard to understand how that tree would not be affected. And if you say that you're going to talk with urban forestry to remove it. I mean, this is a substantial tree that, provides shade to our street, which is lacking. And not only does this tree benefit 21 Murrie, but it benefits all of the surrounding neighbors as well. So I find it difficult to understand why we would, propose to have this tree removed in lieu of additional landscaping that maybe would not provide us with another tree. Again, even if you plant a new tree, it's not going to give us the same sort of canopy cover that this one is providing, as well as it sounds like you had a study done that said like a tree would not be beneficial to this reduced sort of green space that's happening. So I'm obviously an opposal of it, and I don't know what sort of can be maybe modified to the proposed building site to sort of compromise in order to protect this tree. I guess that's my spiel.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Balicki. The issue, I guess, in terms of the tree, if what Mr. Milne Price is saying is that, notwithstanding, if the building as of right, if they built a house at 0.6 coverage, that house he's saying that tree would still be affected. So it's not being affected by the amount in variance being from 0.6 to 0.72, but by the 0.6, in which case we just had a seminar on that. The applicant is entitled to have that tree removed. So that's the decision. If it was the additional 0.1, and he's saying it's not the additional 0.12 coverage that occasioned loss, it's an unfortunate situation. So they have alternative mentioning. So let's go back to Mr. Milne Price. Is someone else speaking in the background? Is that Mr. Milne Price or one of the members? I can't hear it. All I see is the screen. Was someone mentioning? Did someone speak out with a male voice just now?
No, Mr. Chair. Let's continue.
Okay. Okay. Let's go back to the agent for rebuttal on that.
Yes. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I agree that the driveway is clearly within the tree protection zone. However, as I stated, there are no variances that relate to the width of the garage or the width of the driveway. And therefore, this building, if it were constructed within the provisions as of right, would have the exact same effect. And as you brought up, none of these variances relate to the tree.
Okay, you're saying it relates to the as of right driveway and not to it would be occasioned if you were building a house as of right.
Yes, that's correct.
Without these two minor variances. Okay, members, any questions for either the agent or the neighbor, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Question from Palmer. Sir, can you confirm the tree that we're talking about here, is it on the private realm or the public realm?
We are talking about the city tree at the front of the property.
Okay, so it's a city tree.
Tree number 1, yes, in the arborist report.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think the report talks about three trees, a city-owned silver maple at the front, and as well as I believe there were some other ones in the rear, or the report doesn't deal with that. Oh, it's only the front. They're not concerned with the rear tree, it looks like. Okay. Any other questions? Or the neighbors seem to be concerned, no, with the back tree, with the front tree. I think the other neighbor who is not here who wrote in was concerned about the rear tree. Okay. So waiting for a motion then. Mr. Komarek?
Yeah, I think I'm good for a motion. I believe forestry is concerned with both the private trees in the back and the tree in the front, because the consolidated memo spoke to the rear tree. There's a specific mail attached to this item referring to the city-owned tree. Given the situation and given the variances sought are very minor, I believe the appropriate thing to do would be to move a motion to approve the variances subject to forestry conditions 1 and 2. And the applicant can work out with forestry how they're going to address that tree, the public tree, which I'm quite concerned about as well. So I think that's the best way we can address this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Komarek. Thank you for that motion. I have a second for Mr. Komarek's motion. Mr. Palmer, thank you. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Milne Price, and thank you, Ms. Balicki. Okay. Next item is item number 5. This is the item we dealt with firstly about a potential deferral, and I sort of talked the applicant out of it. Mr. Abbott, you're the only speaker. This is a new detached dwelling with a detached garage with 2 minor variances, a small 0.3 eave issue, and the more significant one is under 2 meters in length. No one seems to be opposed. Planning is looking for a condition of approval, time the length of the plans. And forestry, as we discussed, which was originally the reason, they're looking for conditions 2 or 5, 5 being a refusal. And we have in the additional materials a whole slew of letters of support of area neighbors in the immediate area. And we do have an arborist report as backup in terms of, so let's hear from Mr. Brad Abbott on that issue. And welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Yes, as we discussed earlier, the planning issues seem to be straightforward and minor in the opinion of staff, and no opposition in the neighborhood. And I don't know what can be done about the condition number 5 of the, I wouldn't want to
Okay,
do we have to?
let's get their letter on the board and see what their concern was. It was with the privately owned. We pull up, I guess we have the consolidated memo. We have a specific memo on this dated November 1st, which you say you just got, very, you didn't have time to respond to this. And that's why you were originally looking for a deferral. So we have a privately owned honey locust,
Right.
the tree bylaw, and a adjacent privately owned oak tree, both around a little over 60 centimeters. So they're significant trees, but you have your arborist report. So again, I'm not making your presentation. Please make your presentation, sir.
Yep. Sure, I will. Yes, the honey locust tree is in the front yard, and it is by the time we put the front porch in, which is as of right, and the house is as of right as well at the front of the house. That tree will have to be removed, and that is fine with the owner. And in this memo, the city is forestry is requesting that we plant a city tree there anyway, because there isn't a city tree there now. So the removal of this tree will allow for a substantial city tree to be planted. So that's that tree. The other tree that we had slated for removal is basically right up against the existing foundation of the house. So again, an as of right new house will require that tree to be removed, and it's a smaller tree anyway. So that, I believe, is also an as of right condition. And that's the only ones our arborist report sanctioned to be removed. Yes. The others are minor injuries, which we believe are minor injuries, and they're in the neighbor's yard, a couple of white oaks that we do want to save, and we'll make every effort to do that.
Okay, I also am just looking at your arborist report as you've been speaking, sir. It looks like there's 20 trees, so it's not like these are the two only trees on the lot that are being, viciously destroyed and leaving this property barren.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Those are going to stay, and the issue is whether this additional less than 2 meters in length is causing the destruction or the injury to these trees, as opposed to the other, the rest of the house, the other length as of right.
Yes, if you can pull up the arborist map, we can illustrate that the 2 meter extension at the rear is not affecting those trees.
Okay. And I hope Mr. Again, as you heard in the last application, and I think we have several today, and perhaps we can have a practice directive that they should be taking, this could, if you would have accepted this because you're concerned or your client is concerned with this negative report, and that, it's ridiculous that you would have to defer and have a 1 or 3 month delay or longer downtown over something that really has of no concern. And you can see that there's many applications today where they plead in the alternative. So in any event, that's my comment. No other speakers. Thanks for putting up the heavily treed property we're looking at with 20 trees at least referred to in the report. And let's see if committee members have any questions. I don't see the screen of the committee members, so I don't assume there's no questions then, in which case, someone ready for a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion. Motion to approve this application subject to urban forestry condition number 2. I find application to be minor in nature and consistent with the foretest.
Okay, I think planning is also looking for a condition of approval to tie substantially in accordance with the site plan length for the length. They want that condition.
Okay, I missed that, and with that condition from planning as well.
Okay, thank you. So based on that motion, do I have a seconder? Mr. Doth, all 3 hands went up. Mr. Komorik. All in favor? You have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Abbott. And good
Thank
luck
you
with,
very much.
and protect those trees.
Yes, we'll do our best. Yes.
Okay, which, usually homeowners will, they don't want to just, they like the trees too. Okay. Next application is item number 6, 20 Alden Avenue. It's an application to construct a 2-story rear addition. There are 2 variances. We have a copy of the as of right site plan and advisory comments from Metrolinx, and that's all we have. Nothing whatsoever. Jeff Cogliatti is the agent for the applicant. It's a speaker on
there, and members of the committee. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Yeah, so we are, I represent the homeowners. It's a family of 5, as well as the mother of the family of 5. So there are 6 people that, we're trying to make space for in this house. So it's truly a multi-generational house that we're trying to do as part of this renovation. And we tried for months to really stick within the bylaws and carve out enough space for all of the family members, and it just was not working for us. So we are requesting a bit more area and a little bit of coverage as well to accommodate this renovation for this family. I think it's fairly minor in nature, but certainly happy to hear your opinions about it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yeah, with 2 very minor variances, it's a 2-story rear addition. You're over on the cover only 0.45 to 0.5, which is 20 meters on 2 floors, so 10 square meters per floor. That's the extent of your overage, as well as 1% over on the area of the lot, about 4 square meters.
Yep.
No comments from any staff or neighbors. So members, any questions or a motion on this application?
Mr. Chair, if there's no questions, I'm good to go with the motion. I find the application to be minor and definitely meeting the 4 tests, and would like to move approval subject to no conditions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mark. Seconder for that. Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Cogliatti.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, our next application is item number 7, 48 LOWE'S Place, or LOWE'S Place. This is an application to construct a new 2-story communications technology facility that includes a 1-story office support component. The 2-story building includes multiple emergency diesel generators located in a generator yard outside of the building at grade within a screened-in area. A portion of the site will include a new electrical substation that will be designed, constructed, and operated by Toronto Hydro 1. And we have 2 variances, basically the vehicular access from Resources Road. The width of that is wider than it's required to be or permitted to be, as well as we have a large deficiency of parking spaces, 59, whereas 239 are required. We do have on this application correspondence from planning. Yeah, they have no concerns with the proposal. They advise and they'll work with the applicant through the site plan control process. And other than that, there are no other variants. In the additional materials, we have supporting documentation, and this is an application I was talking about, a request by Plant Transportation to defer. So let's hear, we do have that transportation deferral. We usually don't call that at the time of deferrals and deal with them as we go through the application. So we do have that request for deferral. We do have a speaker. The agent is Zenon Radowich. We do have 2 other speakers. I'm not sure if I think they're on the same team. I don't believe they're in opposition, but we'll hear that from the applicant. Perhaps you can let us know that. There is a neighbor.
Mr. Chair, I want to bring to your attention all the area neighbors are present on the call at this time.
Okay, but there are only, I'm just looking up if there's an extra one on the next page. So there's Graham Smith and Chris Johnson, but I believe they may be part of the team. We'll hear from that, as well as Nick Vukobradovic. Those are the only speakers on this application, Adam?
That's correct, Mr. Chair. It looks as if there's an agent, two employees of the company in question, and then potentially a consultant.
Right, so no one opposed as far as I know. So let's hear from Mr. Radowich. He can let us know that.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, you could hear me, correct?
Yes, loud and clear.
Great. So I'm Zenon Radowich, and I'm the agent representing the owner for this property. If the technician could just kind of put up on the screen the supporting material, I think it's kind of a great package to kind of just walk you through and kind of explain the variances and the reason why we feel the variances are minor in nature. And I'll kind of walk you through that. So there was a document we uploaded, and I was told I could request, yeah, there, perfect. So if you could kind of a next sheet. So we are applying for 2 variances. However, basically based on a discussion in the last week, we will be dropping the request for the variance relating to the driveway width extension. So the variance that relates to the 10.5 meter in width versus 17.8, we are no longer requesting that.
Okay.
So we are only requesting the reduction in parking spaces. So kind of let me walk you through that request and why we feel it's fair and reasonable. So first of all, this facility, this building is a communication.
Okay. So sorry, sir. Let's just slow down for a second. So Mike, right now you're suggesting you do not want to defer in accordance with transportation. That's your position, right? You're not in favor of deferral. You wish to proceed today.
We wish to proceed today, but I think maybe after I present, let's just have a discussion on whether it makes sense or not to defer. But I think when we finish.
Okay, if you're proceeding, your position is to defer, and then committee members may decide. But we need to know your position whether you want to defer or not. So you're telling me you don't want to defer. You have 1 variance, and you're going to explain to us why 239 parking spaces are not required and 59 is sufficient.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so again, this facility is a communications facility. It's one of many that are being built across the country by this particular client. In fact, across the world, it's basically the same building type. They've done their own analysis on how many parking spaces they need for these types of facilities, similar to other types of facilities like this throughout Canada and North America. It's essentially like a data center facility. These buildings, essentially, I like to say they're kind of like office buildings, but instead of people, the majority of the building, called 95% of the building, is actually housed with server cabinets. So not people, but servers and cabinets. The portion of the building that actually houses people is the admin portion of the building, which is roughly 1,600 meters squared, or 6% of the total GFA. Of that 1,630 meters squared, or 6% of GFA, half of that is really called the office space, where people actually come to work and sit and work, security personnel, technicians, etc. So this building, this site, although a large building, a large GFA, the actual people component is 6%. We did provide examples of other facilities in Toronto, Greater Toronto area. If you could go to slide number 4, you'll see some of the analysis of other projects. I think it's a slide. That's the, yeah, this, I'm not sure if this slide is fine. So we show examples of other facilities, data centers in Toronto. One that's of actually of really good importance and relevance is 48 Parliament Street. So that is actually downtown core Toronto. It has an area of 2,200 plus meters squared. It has 39 parking spaces provided. And then you can see other related to facilities that are either under construction, complete, or currently going through SPA. This is only a small sampling of facilities like this throughout the Greater Toronto area, throughout Ontario, and they all have very, very, very low parking ratios, for the simple fact that these facilities are about technology and not so much about the people. Very low people count. So based on that, we feel that the bylaw requirement is really an overkill, you know. And again, the client, there is a statement in here. It's actually right here. You can see it. The statement on the left-hand side of the slide kind of describes how they come to their calculation, which is a true and tested calculation, again, based on facilities around the world, specifically in North America and Canada. And I could tell you, because we do a lot of these facilities, these ratios are very similar to almost every other type of facility like this that's built in Toronto or outside of Toronto. It would be a shame to kind of put all these parking spaces there for them to simply sit and it'd be concrete or asphalt and be not a great green space, call it that, and not be used. So, you know, building what is required really makes sense from a you know, called a green perspective. So that's our position, that it's really over provide that parking requirement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Radowich. The other members, the other guys are part of your team. Graham Smith, Chris Johnson, Nick Vukobradovic.
They're the owners.
Okay, so they don't need to speak. They're on your. They're not opposed. They're not, or they're part of the ownership or the agent.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Okay, members. Any questions for Mr. Radowich, or someone ready for a motion?
Yeah, Palmer. Sir, it appears that your submission here that you made late is dated after the transportation comments. So do you think that this report addresses the questions that transportation has raised?
Yes, it does, Mr. Neil Palmer. We received those comments actually on Friday. We responded to them on Monday, and the email bounced back that Luigi's going to be away for, I think, until the 24th. Now, I'll be totally open and honest with you guys, is that going through the SPA process, getting response from transportation hasn't been very easy. They're extremely busy, but we did respond. So this package that I did show you guys went to Luigi right away. So we received comments on Friday. We responded back right away on Monday. So the package did go back to them. It was a different date because it was a bit of a smaller package. So we did respond back. And again, as noted previously, there are no objections from planning. We discussed this whole approach when we had our PAC meeting prior to our SPA submission. There were no objections during that call. I think everybody understands that these facilities, the bylaws were written many, many, many years ago, and these are called new technology facilities. And I think the bylaws really haven't caught up to what these buildings are all about. And now they're being built all over the world. Like, everybody's building data centers and communications facilities. So this is an issue that we come across with every municipality. You need to go and get a variance, and they all understand it because of the function of the building. It's really more of a tech space versus a people space.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we have to look not at just a specific use. We have to look at all the uses that would be permitted on the property in the event that this user goes away and subsequently another user comes onto the property, and we're left with a building that's not functional for many uses, only one specific use. So that's kind of what we need to look at. And the other thing, I would think, if you have other facilities like this that are in the city and you're going to be making future applications, you might want to submit your transportation justification and parking justification with the applications. And that's notwithstanding that transportation maybe should have gotten their comments out a little earlier for you as well. Just a comment.
Yeah, fair enough. And just Mr. Palmer, getting back to your first comment, that is something that people raise all the time. And the answer to that is, for example, with this building, if it did change use, and that would be kind of a very difficult thing to do, just how they're built. But if it did change use, and for example, the generators disappeared because of the change of use, and it went to a normal industrial building, then all of a sudden you free up a whole bunch of more land to put those parking spots back in. So there would be flexibility in the future. Should that happen, there's space there to accommodate those future parking spots.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Radowich?
So just to follow up to Neil's question, and I guess it really comes down to the tenure and the length of time that this building is going to be used for what it's going to be used as. Is this being leased or is it owned?
This is an owned facility by the client. It's one of one of three in the Greater Toronto Area. Between Ontario and Quebec, it's one of 7.
Is the client Microsoft or is it a third party?
It's Microsoft. That is a client. I think the legal name is different, just how registered their company in Canada, 40 years ago, whenever it was, but it is Microsoft.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, any other questions? And if not, is anyone ready to weigh in with a motion?
Yeah, I'm good with the motion. I think we've been on a few panels where we've approved similar situations, and I'm comfortable enough to approve that one variance on that basis. And I believe there are no conditions.
Thank you. Seconded for Mr. Kamarick's motion. Mr. Palmer, thank you. Any comment? Okay, all in favor? Okay, you have unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Radovich. Good luck with your project.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Item number 9, number 8. Number 8 is 190 Alderbra Avenue. It's an application to construct a second-story addition above the existing dwelling, a straight top-up. We have revised agenda page. One of the variances, the height has been revised downward from 9.06. Oops, I just closed my materials. Anyway, we have 4 variants. One is revised the height. We have 8 letters of support. We have an email about the revisions, and again, urban forestry conditions 1 and 5 with the report. So we can perhaps the speaker on this application is only one, Mike de Oliveira. Welcome, Mike, and please explain the urban forestry situation. Is they're looking for a refusal or condition number 1.
Hi, yes, good morning, committee. My name is Mike de Oliveira, here representing 190 Alderbra Avenue. I'm with replacement design located at 911 Davenport Road. So as you mentioned, we have 8 letters of support. This is a pretty simple top up with a small addition. Cantilevering on the side of the house. There's no variances related to that cantilever portion, except for the FSI, which applies to the entire addition. Our side setback for the eaves and house, which are really just for the right-hand side, do match the existing conditions of the home and the current eaves troughs. In terms of the forestry condition, I do know we had a condition to apply for forestry. I was not aware there was one recommending refusal.
They're talking about the privately owned species tree measuring 35 centimeters. Basically, they're looking by a top up that you're going to affect the tree.
Yes, so that is.
Perhaps we can get the forestry memo up on the screen. They're showing a, I don't know if it's on the adjacent property. It's next to a chain link fence, and it looks like a.
Yes, I see the tree you're referring to.
Yeah.
That is at the portion of the home that we are cantilevering, so there isn't going to be anything necessarily affecting the roots in that area. There might be some slight trimming that has to happen, but that's all something we can sort out with an arborist moving forward with an urban forestry application. As I know we'd have to do anyways for the city tree that kind of projects in the front of the property there. There's ordering that's going to have to go around that. So we're aware we'll have to go through an arborist and urban forestry's final approvals, but quite confident we can get that through, considering we're not necessarily touching the roots for any of those trees.
Mr. Oliveira, I can tell you, and Mr. Carvalino, the urban forestry has to be contacted. These alternative refusal reports can be very serious for people who take it, who don't go ahead. In this case, a top up, the most simple type of redevelopment you can think of, putting a second story. And they're saying that affects this tree, and we should, anyway.
Mr. Chair, I also want to draw your attention to there's 2.
It's a top up.
There's the site-specific memo of October 31st,
yes,
as well as the general memo. So they're actually asking for two conditions. Condition 1 for the city street tree and condition 2 for the private tree.
Okay, but yet in the overall memo it was just 1 and 5, not 1, 2, and 5. So it should be 1, 2, and 5. And the
Yes.
issue was denial of the height variance as affecting the tree. Come on, man. Really?
Mr. Chair, I'm not an arborist. We just present what's given.
You know what I'm saying, but I think urban forestry has to realize the potential cost and delay and to applicants, and just throwing out that number 5 on so many applications is very perplexing, in this case to a top up. So that's my comment. Members, any comments? And again, 4 variances, the height has been revised. No comments from community planning or any other departments or any other neighbors. So any comment or questions for Mr. Oliveira, or is someone ready for a motion? Any letters of support? Mr. Komarek.
I'm good for a motion. I believe the application meets the 4 tests. I believe there are 8 letters of support. I'd like to move approval as revised, subject to urban forestry conditions 1 and 2.
Thank you. I have a seconder for that. Ms. Ruddick, thank you. All in favor? You have your approval.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
So much time is spent here defending urban forestry memos. How can an extra variance of 1 meter in height affect the tree? Anyway, I think their staff should attend their own seminar that they gave us. It's the amount in variance that has to be affecting the tree. And this is a top up. They're not extending the building envelope by an inch. Okay, thank you, Mr. Oliveira. Sorry for venting. Item number 9 is 205 Humber College Boulevard. It's an application, interesting application. It's to construct a steel covered canopy for pedestrian walkways. There is only 1 variance. We have a previous decision in December 2001, reconfiguring parking to provide additional parking spaces. And this is Humber College, obviously, on Humber College Boulevard. And the speaker is David Eagleman, and looks like he has on the line an executive with Humber College on the line as well. No one appears to be on the line in opposition, and there are no conditions. Mr. Eagleman, welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to you and to the fellow committee members. I don't think this requires a very detailed presentation, but I'll just briefly clarify the proposal and the variance we're asking for. And I'll just note that no concerns or objections have been expressed by any city departments, including community planning staff. The proposal in front of you today is part of the larger proposal for the new Finch West LRT Humber College Station. The proposal today is just for a covered canopy structure that will connect to the station and will cover a sidewalk that leads directly to Humber College campus. So the variance that we're asking for is really a technical variance, because the east side lot line, which the variance pertains to, is the lot line of the subject property, which is Humber College property. It's the east side lot line that abuts the actual station, the actual Humber College station, which is on municipal owned property. And because of that, the canopy is considered to have a 0 meter setback to that lot line, and is considered to have a 0 meter wide landscaping strip. But if the committee can just turn to the site plan briefly, the canopy actually just touches the east side lot line for a very small portion of that entire lot line, and there will be landscaping between the new station and the newly constructed parking lot. So those are my comments, Mr. Chair. If the committee has any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but this is a very minor application and in my opinion, it meets the 4 tests.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Eagleman, members, or is someone ready for a motion?
No issues. I'm ready to make a motion. I'll move for approval. Variances requested are minor in nature and meet 4 tests in the Planning Act. No conditions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Palmer. Second for that, Ms. McCluskey. Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Eagleman, and
Thank
to
you,
Mr.
Mr. Chair.
On the line. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Okay, it's now, I guess, 12 minutes to 11, 10:48. Let's we take a 12-minute break, if that's okay. Is that long enough? 12, or we can come back at 10 or 10, sorry, 11 or 11:05. Okay, 11 it is.
11 it is,
Okay,
Mr.
we'll
Chair.
see you
Thank
back.
you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome back. See Mr. Palmer. So if anyone else is wait for other people to get back, and so we'll have quorum. Okay, there we go. Okay, staff, are you you're with us?
We're ready, Mr. Chair. Yep.
Okay. Okay, the next application is item number 10, 20 Clearport Crescent number 7. It's to maintain the medical office / clinic and or massage therapy use, holistic wellness and aromatherapy massage center. Previous committee of adjustment decisions, plural, approved minor variances related to use of medical clinic, office, and massage therapy. We have one variance that the proposed medical office clinic as massage therapy is not a permitted use in an E zone. And a previous committee of adjustment decisions approved minor variances related to use of medical office clinic and massage therapy in an E zone. And then previously in an IC.2 zone. And they had a previous decision permitting that. So I see one was November 2015. It was to convert existing body rub parlor to a holistic health center. November 2017, a 5-year time limit approval to December 13, 2022, which I assume was why we're back here. We have a cover letter from the landlord advising that they've entered into a new 5-year lease. Can someone turn off someone in the background who should be muted, who's not muted?
Mr. Chair, it's just the agent.
Okay, I hear some heavy breathing in the background. I know this used to be a body rub parlor, but anyway, bad joke. We also have a letter from the landlord that they're in support and they've entered into a new lease till on October 2021, and a letter to the municipal licensing. Planning is asking for a refusal or alternatively a 2-year extension to permit them time to vacate. And that's what we have. We only have the one speaker, Paul Tiefenbach. So we have a planning memo, which we're going to have to ask the speaker to respond to with respect to whether this use should be continued to be permitted to apply. And I assume now they're asking for a permanent, not time limited proposal, but that we'll hear from the applicant on that. So planning is recommending refusal. That's basically all we have. So Mr. Tiefenbach?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir. Let's can you make a presentation, please?
Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. I'm back before you again with the same operation and the same tenancy, and that the committee has seen fit to approve previously twice. During the course of the last 5 years, there have been no incidents that could curtail what they are doing. The committee felt that their concern at the time was whether or not that they had proper tenancy for the facility, and that was settled then and has been resettled again. The fact that they have been grandfathered to any new changes in planning should entitle them to the continuity of their business. They survived the pandemic and in a good relationship with the landlord and wish to continue on. That's it.
Okay, sir. Just before I see if committee members have any questions, I'll make 2 points. First of all, They were not the same members that approved this matter in 2015 for 2 years and then 2017 for 5 years. You're saying you're looking at this point, you want to make it permanent, I would take it. Planning is looking for another 2-year extension or refusal. And the nature of and I was, I have a history. I was involved managing industrial, commercial, prestige employment. It's a question of whether industrial place where the public is invited and the public comes, whether that's appropriate in an industrial and employment area. And that's the issue, I guess. So you're looking for this point for permanent approval, not for 2 years or 5 years?
Well, I would, if I can't get permanent approval, we would like to get another 5-year extension.
Okay. And your lease you just entered into, I think, was it, when does that lease term go until? Not that that has any relevance, but you did enter into a new lease at this point for the use to
I believe it's 2028.
Yeah. I think the nature in these type of things is they feel that, and things have changed over years in terms of what industrial and manufacturing and light manufacturing. And in this case, whether it's, if you allow sort of type of uses, maybe other people won't go there because their use could be a little heavier and would affect uses where people come, such as this type of a medical type massage use. So let's see what the committee members feel about this.
I'd like to make one more comment. The fact that the structure of the current Committee of Adjustments is different than the Committee of Adjustments back in 2017 begs the question of, it was the City of Toronto that are making the application for the minor variance, not to the individual members of the committee then or now.
Yeah, I just made a comment. You start off by saying you approved, so I'm just clarifying that this is a new committee.
You being collectively the city, not you individually as members.
I understand that, sir. Okay. Having said that, this committee does not know what was being requested in November it was being opposed by staff, was it not being opposed by staff? So let's just deal with what's before us. I'm sorry if I offended you by saying that
I take no offense. I just wanted clarification.
Okay, exactly. Okay, so let's hear from the members now. Let's see what they think.
Yeah, Palmer here. Sir, just for clarification, there's a letter from the landlord dated June 7th, 2022 that says you've got another 5-year lease commencing October 1st, 21, with an option for further renewals. So
yes,
finding that out that you've got, so another 5 years from 21 would put you to 26, I guess.
Okay, sorry.
So I don't know where or how the planning department came up with 2 years, but that's their comment, which we'll take a look into. I guess we have to look at how this use impacts on uses that are your immediate neighbors and what could potentially be your immediate neighbors. So we have to consider that. And so are you saying there's no impact from your use on other users in the area?
You have letters. This is a small industrial condominium complex, and we're Unit 7 in the row, and we have letters of support from a number of unit owners in adjacent units.
These are condominium units, individually owned, and there's a corp. Okay,
right,
so
correct.
That begs a good question. What are some of the other uses? I think that's a very good thing to know about what are the other uses are. There's how many units? You're in Unit 7, so at least 7. I don't know how many there are more or less, but just if you are you aware and can you give us some indication of what the other tenant or the other condo owners in this development are and how many there are?
There's an automotive detailing shop. There is a gentleman who wholesales spices and does a great deal of spice grinding. There's a church in Unit 1 that operates in off hours to everyone else's business. There's a small contractor, there's a plumber. You know, they're all small businesses.
Right, that's very helpful. And how many? So you have you're in unit 7. How many units
Yes.
are
1 second, and I can tell you.
give or take? It doesn't.
Give or take, yes, I know. You have the site map there. So it's
Oh, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay. So,
Can I just interrupt just for a second? There is a plan that shows all of the units and the users
Yes.
in the plans that were submitted that we have on file. Maybe the staff can.
oh yeah, services. Okay, yeah. Here it is. List of services. Oh, spa services. That's
So
different.
there's a plan after that one, a couple pages after that one that shows that's got written on this one here. Yep, that one. It shows the users on it.
Okay. And again, just looking here, we do have these the other tenants or the other condo industrial unit owners appear to be in favor, and it's good to know what that mix is. Yeah, planning's position is that the reason they gave 2 years would be give them a time to vacate and find another location, seemingly where they feel it should be permitted. So you don't feel like holistic wellness, the guy grinding spices, that can be pretty smelly. That's not. And the issue is, I guess they feel that maybe other people, but these are individually owned units, so people do what they want. They're supposed to meet the zoning bylaw, obviously. So that's the issue here. But that was the reason they chose Stan, the 2-year period. So 2 years, 5 years, permanent or refusal, it seems to be the way to go, or matching the existing lease term, which I don't know if there's magic in that. It sounds like the landlord is permitted to allow this to go on, either, but if
The
there's
landlord is very malleable in this.
yeah. Okay. So members, any other questions or a motion?
I just had a comment. It's Sophia. So I know that from the planning memo, they've noted that there's actually if you want to do a permanent change to the use of the property, to the municipal comprehensive review application. So, I mean, they've not just said no, they've identified a proper process to go about looking at a permanent change. So I just wanted to point that out, and that should be considered.
We broached that, and at this point in time, it's cost prohibitive.
I see. Thank you. That's very good point, Ms. Roddick. It says, yeah, the municipal comprehensive review process is the appropriate application type to review an application for a non-permitted use, particularly when seeking permission for a permanent use as opposed to 2 years or 5 years. But then this is an issue that arises all over the city because people buy these units, they want to rent them out, and the issue is the compatibility of various uses. If you have someone grinding spices next door to someone who's doing brain surgery, it may not be very compatible. So that's why we have, and the issue is this has been going on for at least 7 years. And it seems like it doesn't.
Without any.
Yeah, often when you get these, you'd see complaints from the adjacent users saying, "Oh my God, it's not compatible. It's causing problems for me and bringing people." We don't seem to have that here. But so the issue is, city says 2 years or refusal. And the applicant is looking for either permanent or 5 years or to match the existing lease. So again,
sorry, when does the current lease expire?
November 1,
It expired in 21.
So there is you currently do not have a lease.
They do. They have a new lease to 26.
Okay, when does the new lease expire?
October
26.
Okay, I didn't get that. Thanks.
Okay, so ready for motion.
I'm ready to make a motion. I think that the use is demonstrated to be minor and meeting the 4 tests in the Planning Act. Given that it is a continued use that has been here for 7 years, we've had 2 previous Committee of Adjustment approvals, and the tenant has signed a new lease. I would say that we grant approval to the variance until October 1st, 2026.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's your motion. Okay, so to the end of the existing term, and then they can come back perhaps, So it's 2 years, 5 years, or the remainder of almost 5 years being the current lease term. I guess about 4 years left. Okay, so do I have a seconder for that motion, please? Anyone ready to second that? Mishi, thank you. All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. You have your approval, sir, Mr. Teambat, for 5 years, or sorry, for the remaining lease term expiring October 31st, 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and next application is item number 11, 44 Greenbrook Drive. And we have a revised sheet agenda page. There were 3 variances, there still are, but they've increased the distance from the lot line, front lot line, by 1 meter, 20 meters from 19. Other than that, we'd have the other 2 variances before us. We have the revised agenda page and the revised zoning review and revised plans. We have a copy of an as-of-right site plan, an arborist report, and planning is looking for a condition of approval. The construct is illustrated with regard to the front yard and the length. Urban Forestry has weighed in with condition number 4. And number 46, next door neighbor, is in opposition. They're concerned with the front yard setback. We do know that there was a revision, so we'll have to hear from the neighbor if they're satisfied for that 1 meter change. It appears that was done after their letter, so we'll hear about that. Okay, and in the additional materials, we have a presentation which we can get on the screen, an arborist report, and we'll turn it over to the speaker, Peter Giordano.
Mr. Chair, just if I may interrupt you before we go forward. So forestry is actually requesting deferral, right?
They are? No.
That's what condition 4 is.
Oh, okay. So perhaps Mr. Giordano can get into that. I see we have a second speaker. I assume, is that the homeowner?
Mr.
There's
Chair,
no address.
I'd like to bring to your attention, it actually is an area resident, and we have spoken to them. They weren't sure at the time if they really wanted to participate or not. And they are not present on the call at this time. So I'm going to go forward saying they chose not to participate in the end.
Okay, thank you very much. So we only have the one speaker. Nothing on the back of the page. Okay, yep. Okay, Mr. Giordano.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, hi, I'm Peter Giordano with David Small Designs.
Okay, we did have a letter from the, I don't know if we need a fulsome presentation, Mr. Giordano, on this one, but can you comment on the issue with the neighbor and the issue about her concern, whether that was before or after, or if you know about her concern?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. We had a similar situation with this as some of the other applications before us. We received notification on Friday of last week from what was posted as the consolidated report from Forestry, and it did recommend a deferral. We were quite flabbergasted by that because we couldn't see what would have been part of that requirement. We reached out right away to Forestry, and we communicated with Mr. Max Dita in Forestry to get his perspective. He was concerned that the sheds that we were moving in the rear yard, there are 3 existing non-conforming sheds in the rear yard. We were removing all 3 of them, building a new cabana, which was part of our variance item number 3 with a rear yard setback to that cabana. And we were quite surprised to find out that he had concerns. We have an arborist report. Our arborist had no concerns. This is a tree. Well, let me speak to the other variances just quickly. Front yard setback, we increased it to 20 meters to the front. It's a skewed property line, so even though 21.97 is required, the front wall of our house has 3 facets on it, and it really extends. Actually, could I get the moderator to take you directly to page or to sheet number 8, please? It'll be clear on that page. You'll see there are a series of arrows on the drawing there. You'll see that our requirement for front yard setback 20 meters is taken to the front projected portion of the facade where the front entry is. But based on the skew of the property, the house does set back all the way to 21.45 meters to the far end of the garage. So we believe the requested variance for front yard to be quite minor. Building length requirement, item number 2, 18.34 is what we're requesting. 117 meters is required. Now you'll notice that's taken from the very front facade projection as well to the appendage at the rear that's on the right side of the rear property. That equates to about 25% of the building length at the rear. The other arrows that I've got in there, the red arrows, will show you that effectively the building length measured from the same point in the middle span of the building is only 16.23 meters long, which complies, and then it gets even shorter behind the garage. So it's only that small 25% projection that exceeds, and we had full support from planning for the front yard setback, item number 1, and the building length, item number 2. The tree in the rear. So I've highlighted on this drawing in green the tree at the very back of the property on the neighbor's side. It's an elm. That tree, I'm going to ask the moderator if he could then flip to page number 10, please. That tree is an existing tree. Yeah, that would be great. Number 10 right there. So there are a series of images on that rear, on that sheet over there. The blue cabana that you see in the rear is an existing cabana that exists on our side of the property. We were proposing to remove that cabana. It's built on slab on grade, so we were proposing to remove that cabana by hand, which is within the tree protection zone of that tree. It's the elm that I've got pointed at with the red arrow in the background there. We're trying to make the situation better. But you'll see that there's a retaining wall there, an existing concrete retaining wall, and there's a shed on the neighbor's side. This is a neighbor that supports our application, but there's a shed on his side. The shed on his side is about a foot away from that tree. That retaining wall is 2 inches away from that elm tree. It's on the neighbor's property. It doesn't belong to us. That retaining wall has to go below frost level at least another 4 feet. So that tree has a retaining wall probably 7 feet in height built right next to it. And forestry's concern is with the, not with the built form that we're asking for the revisions for, or the cabana that we were asking for the revision for, the variance for, but the removal of that blue siding cabana that you see in that photograph there. We've since, to try to mitigate that concern by forestry, we've since provided a revised site plan that you made reference to, dated November the 9th, which proposes keeping that shed, removing the request for a new cabana at the rear, which would effectively remove our variance item number 3, and then remove the other 2 existing non-conforming sheds. You'll see them in the photograph below that, the tan colored shed that you see in that photograph below there. That's the those are the other 2 cabanas that are on the property. So we're hoping to make that condition better to satisfy forestry, but it's that tree could not be more injured than it currently is, with a retaining wall right next to it and a building directly built on the neighbor's side right next to it, and our cabana that already exists. So that's our perspective. We hope you agree with us. Where we would effectively, with that submission, remove item number 3 and just ask for the minor variances for 1 and 2.
Okay, well, so I'm just looking at this picture. So anything to do with that tree, just seems to me from what you said, is occasioned by the neighbor and their own property, their own retaining wall, their own tree. And you can see in that picture on the sort of right-hand side, it says right rear corner, that picture there.
Right.
So you're going to, like, their concern is the removal of the cabana, not a new cabana. Was new cabana supposed to be in the same spot, more or less, or?
Through you, Mr. Chair, on the opposite side.
I see. So the issue with slab on grade, so it shouldn't, if you removed it or whatever, how would that affect that tree? That tree, like you say, is already impacted by the retaining wall, the sort of the the fence, board fence, and the structure behind it, which looks taller than yours. What is that? Also a cabana on the neighbor's side, or a shed, or?
Not sure exactly what it is.
Looks taller, right? It's taller than yours?
Taller than ours, but you can see that the grade height is at the top of the retaining wall. So that might be a slight distortion there. But
okay,
our arborist had no concern with the removal of the shed. But in our revised proposal to satisfy Mr. Dita, we're hoping that just leaving the shed will alleviate his concerns.
Right. Well, like you say, this has to be, I've said this more than once today, it's your construction and your variance that has to affect this tree. So I saw the neighbor was asking us something about the trees on the east side of the property, the neighbor that wrote in about the front lot line issue. Okay, so let's see if members have any questions for you or if someone's ready for a motion.
Palmer with a question here. So, sir, you've revised variance number 1 as a front yard setback to 20 meters, correct?
Correct.
And variance number 2 is building length, which you haven't changed. And variance 3 you're removing, correct?
Correct. With the cabana being removed as part of that as well.
Okay, so
So
the variances,
the application changes to take out the cabana from the purpose.
oh, okay, all right. I'm not going to make a motion right now. I just have a question. So any of the variances that you've requested, the 2 remaining variances, do any of them impact on the trees on the property that forestry's commented about?
No, we're about 11, through you, Mr. Chair, we're about 11.25 meters away. The closest point of the longest projection of our house is just over 11 meters away from the tree, the elm that forestry is concerned about. And we're out of the tree protection zone for tree number 6, 7, and 8, which are on the left side of the property.
You have a drawing called as of right site plan. So that shows where your as of right build is on this lot. And we have your arborist report. Oh yeah, you're okay with the planning conditions being proposed?
Yes.
They want to stick you know, construct as illustrated on the front yard and the length. So they're keeping you to your plans. Obviously, because you said the lot is sort of skewed.
Correct.
It makes sense. And there is no this new build. There's no this new detached dwelling with an attached garage has no FSI or other variances, no height. It's just your length.
That's correct. They're all as of right.
Okay. Okay. Members, any more questions, or is someone ready for a motion? Mr. Palmer?
Yeah, I'll move a motion. Variances requested are as revised. So variance 1 revised to 20 meters and variance 3 removed. And the purpose of the application, we're going to remove the ancillary building in the rear yard. So the variances requested as revised are minor in nature, meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act. So I'm going to move for approval subject to planning condition, which is tying this to the site plan dated October 22nd regarding front yard setback and building length. No forestry condition required.
Thank you. Seconder for that motion, Mr.
Yeah, a second, but with a query. I mean, forestry did chime in saying that as an alternative to deferral, they would like condition number 2, just in terms of protecting and injuring potentially private trees. So I'm not sure, Neil, if how you feel about adding that, or you want to leave it without.
No, because I think their comments were specifically about that elm in the back corner. And we're removing the cabana, or the applicant is removing the cabana. And I believe that the variances requested are not impacting on any trees on the property. That's what the applicant has clarified.
Okay,
So
I'll second it as you proposed then.
Okay. All in favor? It's unanimous. You have your approval. Thank you, Mr. Giordano. We'll see you again.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Item number 12, 35 ALANMEADE Crescent is the next application. And the speaker, Osrin Stambuk, it's for a second-story addition above the existing dwelling and a two-story rear addition. There are 5 variances. We have previous decisions in the area provided by the agent. We have item of number 5 variances, 43 ALANMEADE in support, 33 next door as an opposition. He's lived there 62 years. And likes the light and everything. And Urban Forestry is looking for condition number 2 on this one. And the speaker, so we only have the one speaker, Mr. Stambuk. Welcome, sir.
Hi, thank you. This is Osrin Stambuk. I'm at 15 Moreland Road.
Okay, so you want to do a top up and a 2-story rear addition, and you got 5 variances.
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair. I believe this is a pretty straightforward top-up where we are basically using the existing building footprint and also a little bit of a concrete porch. We've kept the variances to a minimum, I believe, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Members, any questions for the agent? You've given us previous decisions in the area, given us some comparables to look at here, I see. Right, on Meadowbank. Again, other additions like that. And this is, like you said, a top up and a addition in the back. So, okay, any questions, members? She only gave us one precedent here. Any questions for the agent? And if not, is someone ready for a motion? We do have, yeah, that's all we have. We don't have Urban Forestry is looking for condition number 2.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the application. Consider this to be minor in nature, meets the 4 tests, and just subject to Urban Forestry condition number 2.
Okay, thank you, Ms. McCluskey. A seconder for that. Mr. Komorik, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, sir. You have your application has been approved.
Thank you. And Mr. Clark, I just want to say I really appreciate your comments throughout this hearing about trees and that joke you made about the massage parlor. I'm glad my mic was off.
Okay. That adds some levity and humor to the proceedings once in a while. Thank you. Okay, so we can move on to item number 13, which is 228 Falstaff Avenue. It's an application for a 1-story front and east side additions. There are 4 variances. We have a copy of an order to comply, and planning has provided us with a report for information. Speaker is Dennis Peter Kerfurst, who is the agent for the applicant. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank
and
you.
there's no urban forestry conditions or refusals with this application. Good morning, sir. So we'd like to introduce yourself and state your name and address and give us a brief see if you want to let the committee members know anything. We do have the planning report for information.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Dennis Kerfurst. I am basically representing the clients. They obviously got into a situation where they had an order to comply. We were contacted. We stepped forward and proceeded to submit this application. At the end of the day, the premise behind this application is due to financial constraints the families had, forcing the in-laws to kind of move in with them and help with the kids and such. And obviously they cannot afford to do 2nd-story additions. And, so they're basically, what we've tried to do here is try to put together something for them in order to, contain both the families within the building. Given the fact that there are, two-story, quite high-density developments going on across the street, this is something that we would obviously entertain, once financial situations turn around for them. But at this moment, this is the best that they could afford, and what we've come up with in order to, help them with their situation.
Okay. I see the planning report does mention about the fact that this property is the way it's situated on the lot before the additions. So that's why they provide us that report. They say the property is built, it's kind of skewed on the lot, and that the variance for an east side yard setback of 0.55 meters in existing condition pertaining only to the extension on the east side main wall with the enclosure of the front porch.
Correct. That's yes. Everything in actuality is an existing non-conforming condition.
Right. Okay. Members, any questions for Mr. Kerr first, or is someone ready for a motion? And I don't have visuals, so if you can speak up as opposed to
It's Kumaric.
Okay.
Yeah, I find the application to be minor and meeting the 4 tests, and would like to move approval with no conditions.
Okay, thank you, sir. Seconder for that motion? Ms. McCluskey, thank you. All in favor? Unanimous approval. Thank you, Mr. Kerr first. Okay. We can now move on to item number 14, 16 Van Dusen. We have a number of speakers on this one. This is let me just do a quick introduction here. So 16 Van Dusen, it's to construct a new detached dwelling with an attached garage. There are 5 variances. We have revised plans and waivers, but no highlighted revisions shown. We have photos. We have applicants' revisions and explanation for that. We have an arborist report, a cover letter. We have the former Councillor Grimes agreeing with TOCA that this application should be refused outright. In the additional materials, we have revised notice, 4 variances remaining, all have been revised. We have revised, again, plans. Urban Forestry is looking for conditions 2, 3, and 5. And planning is advised that they're retracting their report, that following the revisions made and shown in the additional materials, with now only 4 variances, all of which have been revised, that they have no further objections following the revisions, and they retract their refusal letter. We have 29 letters of opposition. Again, I think we have something from TOCA. I'm not sure. I see that the Councillor Grimes agrees with TOCA, and I see TOCA is going to be speaking. Mr. Watson, on behalf of TOCA, is one of the speakers. So we'll get to that. So the applicant is Mr. Eagleman, David Eagleman. We then we'll hear from, and perhaps Adam, you can advise me if any or all of these people are present. Andrew Watson from TOCA. Then we have a neighbor from 28 Meadowcrest, 26 Brentwood South, 15 Van Dusen across the street, and 18 Van Dusen right next door.
Mr. Chair and members, all area residents are present on the call at this time.
Okay. Okay, let's hear from Mr. Eagleman, and then we'll see if TOCA wants to go first or last. And we'll hear from everyone on this. So that's basically introduction. Planning is now okay. We'll have to see if any of these, we'll have to perhaps get the revised application up on the board and the additional materials. So because now planning is satisfied with those changes. We don't know if any of the other speakers are. Okay, Mr. Eagleman, I'll turn the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, good morning again, Mr. Chair and committee members. David Eagleman, planner here on behalf of the owners. And through you, Mr. Chair, before I get into my presentation, perhaps if you would like, I can go through the revisions to the variances. I did provide a cover letter, but if you need me to read out the revisions, I can do that.
Just do your presentation as you wish. Perhaps we'll keep that on the board, and any other anything else you want up there. I'm going to go over to my additional materials so I have it in front of me.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So before getting into the variances, I would like to note that we have consulted extensively with both community planning staff as well as the neighbors regarding this application. The revisions we have made to the proposal and the variances are a result of our extensive consultation, and the revisions are to the satisfaction of community planning staff, as you have noted, Mr. Chair. It is my understanding that at this time, the extensive revisions we have made to the proposal and variances are still not to the satisfaction of the surrounding neighbors. However, other than urban forestry, no city departments have any concerns or objections with the proposal. Regarding that report from urban forestry, I respectfully disagree with urban forestry's refusal recommendation. While I am not an arborist, the proposal only requires the removal of one bylaw regulated tree, and that tree is within an as of right building envelope of the subject property. So regardless of the variances that we're requesting today, an as of right dwelling on the subject property could be constructed and would still require the removal of that bylaw protected tree. The proposal also includes one new tree planting in the front yard to replace the tree that is proposed to be removed, and we would still be required to deal with urban forestry even if the committee were to approve this application with no conditions. So the committee can take comfort in the fact that we have to deal with urban forestry no matter what, and we are completely acceptable to the recommended standard conditions number 2 and number 3. And just lastly, in regards to the urban forestry report, I did briefly discuss the revised plans with the arborist we have retained on the file, and they did advise that the revised proposal will be less impactful to the tree, and it could perhaps be preserved. However, we did not have enough time to go through those details. So regarding the variances, the lot coverage includes the proposed rear yard ancillary structure. On its own, the proposed new dwelling has a lot coverage of only 34.8%, which is only 1.8% or 7.36 square meters over what is permitted as of right. The proposed rear yard ancillary structure is also 10.57 meters away from the proposed new dwelling, is only 1 story in height, and has a floor area of only 9.29 square meters. So the rear yard ancillary structure will not contribute to an increase in massing on the subject property in any substantial way, and will be greatly separated from the new dwelling so as not to create any continuous massing from the new dwelling to the ancillary structure. The ancillary structure is also to replace an existing rear yard detached garage, which is larger than the proposed new ancillary structure. Regarding the FSI, the additional massing proposed will be distributed over 2 floors, and the resulting dwelling will be in keeping with the existing character. The dwelling is compliant with all setback requirements, all landscaping requirements, as well as the maximum permitted building length and depth, which demonstrates that the FSI is appropriate and is not an overdevelopment. Specifically, the new dwelling is 2.66 meters below the maximum permitted length. There have also been a number of approvals for FSI, but I won't get into those for the sake of time, but I would be happy to provide those if the committee wishes. Variance number 3 has been eliminated. Regarding variance number 4, which is the height will result in a dwelling that is very much in keeping with the neighborhood. Similar to the FSI, there have been many approvals similar to or greater than the height being proposed. And the height is only 60 centimeters greater than what is permitted as of right. That will be practically imperceptible as compared to an as of right building height, and the proposed ceiling heights will be of a modest 9 feet 6 inches and 8 feet 6 inches for the first and second floors respectively. Lastly, the front and rear main wall height, similar to my discussion on the main wall and the main building height, the wall height is very much in keeping with the existing character. It is only 70 centimeters greater than what is permitted as of right and will also be practically imperceptible. So based on the provided justification, I'm of the opinion that this proposal fits in with both the existing and planned context for the neighborhood, is consistent with the redevelopment trends along Van Dusen Boulevard and the broader neighborhood context. And for these reasons, I believe this application represents good planning and meets the 4 tests under section 45(1). Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eagleman. So we do have 29 letters of opposition, I guess, prior to your changes. I see in the additional materials, several of those people have weighed in saying they still think it's too big. There are 3 letters to that effect. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Eagleman at this time, or should we we'll go over to the neighbors? And I guess I just want to know from Mr. The TOCA representative, I think it's Andrew Watson, whether he wishes to go first or last. Otherwise, we'll go in the order. I guess he's not on the list, so we can just always go on the ladder and put him at the bottom. Mr. Watson, would you like to be the cleanup hitter on this?
Yeah, we have a speaker order list that we want to go in, and so I'll just give that to you. First would be Mike Green, followed by John Marsden, Christine Jeremenko,
yep,
myself, and then Ingrid Van Weert. So it'd be that in that order.
5. Okay, we can I guess accommodate that. I just know how people are approaching handling different issues or whatever. So okay, so the first speaker is Michael Green at 26 Brentwood Road South.
Hello.
Hello.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Michael Green, 26 Brentwood Road South, 300 meters from the development. I'm a past chair of the Thompson Orchard Community Association. I will start by expressing my disappointment at the applicant's assertion in their most recent cover letter of November the 4th, which reads, and I quote, "We believe that the extensive revisions that have been made address the concerns expressed by TOCA as well as the surrounding neighbors." These comments are at best simply wishful thinking and at worst are attempts to be deliberately misleading. The applicant has no evidence or reason to make such claims. Having reviewed the final plans, TOCA and the majority of the original 29 letter writers have reconfirmed their opposition to the development, and on the other side, the applicant has 0 letters of support. I'm going to speak to a group of pictures and variances provided by the applicant, which he referred to a few moments ago, as they provide excellent examples of why this development is meeting such strong opposition, including both next door neighbors and 3 others who are immediately surround the property. The applicant provided data on 14 homes focusing on floor space index, lot coverage, and height, which are 3 of the 4 variances they request. Their data shows only 8 of 14 required a height variance. The average was 8.7 meters. They are requesting 9.1 meters. Only 7 of the 14 required a lot variance. The average coverage was 34.5. Their requested variance is 37%. Only 8 of 14 required a floor space index variance, with an average being 0.61 versus their requested 0.68. Critical to note, only 2 of the 14 homes required all 3 variances, and in these situations, all those variances were smaller than what the applicant is requesting. Also critical to note, which the applicant didn't mention, and I can see why, is the 4th variance requested, front and rear main wall height. This was only required on 3 of 14 homes. Finally, only 1 of the other homes required all 4 variances. My conclusion is the applicant wants to push the boundaries on past variances by maximizing the size of those 4 variances collectively on this single build. This would indeed be precedent setting. The emerging picture and the root cause of people's concerns is the collective impact of the requested variances, which will result in a house with a massing and scale much greater than surrounding homes and totally at odds with the prevailing physical character of the immediate and greater neighborhood. This is why you are seeing such overwhelming opposition to this particular application, which I urge you to decline. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions, members, for Mr. Green before we move on to the next speaker? Okay, if not, let's move on to John Marsden at 18 Van Dusen, right next door.
My name is John Marsden, and I live at 18 Van Dusen Boulevard, directly west of 16 Van Dusen. In addition to representing myself today, I'm also here to speak on behalf of Mary McNamara from 82 Cliveden, located directly east of the subject property. I have provided Mary's written authorization to Nicole Melrose for me to represent her today.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to draw the committee's attention to the fact that no letters of support have been provided. Rather, 29 letters of opposition to the initial proposal were submitted from near neighbors, the Thompson Orchard Community Association, Councillor Grimes, and Urban Forestry. Even with a last-minute submission, the majority of the initial respondents have reconfirmed their opposition to the updated plans. All three of the neighbors directly touching 16 Van Dusen oppose the project, as well as two of the three closest neighbors across the road. The November 3rd plan revision notes consultation with neighbors. Mr. Eagleman reconfirmed that in his introductory speech today. Let me be clear, at no point in this progress have any of the immediate neighbors, 18 Van Dusen, 19 Van Dusen, 15 Van Dusen, 80 Cliveden, or 82 Cliveden, the closest 5 houses, been consulted in this progress. The plan submitted at public notice asked for significantly greater combined variances than prior projects approved in Thompson Orchard. By reducing such an aggressive initial request, there may be a tendency to consider the applicant as being accommodating, but the totality of the requested variances remain out of line. The combination of both extra height and coverage would lead to a house with far greater massing than others in the neighborhood. I have concerns about the proposed wall height and roof height and the impact that the massing will have on our views, sunlight, privacy, and my family's ability to enjoy our outdoor space. Both the walls and the roof are excessively high. An important point about the roof is that it is not a 9.2 meter peak, but a mostly flat roof where the majority of it runs horizontally at 9.2 meters high. This is considerably more imposing than a peaked structure of the same height. I also strongly object to the removal of the mature ginkgo tree from the backyard. Preserving greenery is important, and this fact has been recognized by the city's official plan. Section 3.4 stresses the desire to preserve and enhance the urban forest and increase tree canopy coverage. The requested removal of this tree is at odds with the city plan. As such, Urban Forestry has recommended that the proposal be denied. Mary McNamara shares my concerns about the removal of this tree. No neighbor is more impacted by this proposal than Mary. She has lived in her bungalow directly east of 16 Van Dusen for 37 years. Her corner house faces east and is wider than it is deep. This positioning is very important as the two houses are not parallel to each other, but perpendicular. As a result, the entire back of Mary's house would have windows facing the proposed build. She has great concerns that if granted, the requests for additional lot coverage and increased wall height will result in a house that looms over hers. This would greatly reduce her privacy and cause a drastic loss of sunlight throughout her house during much of the day. I would ask the committee why the applicant's desire for extra ceiling height outweighs Mary's right to sunlight and privacy. Mary is also very concerned about drainage. The requested variances would result in more water flowing between the two houses and lead to additional flooding of her property. The increased lot coverage will also result in there being less land to absorb runoff. Water that doesn't end up in Mary's yard will end up in the street and eventually the Mimico Creek, where flooding has been an issue. I thank the committee for the opportunity to speak today, and I respectfully ask that the application be denied.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions for the next door neighbor?
Brief question, if I may.
Yeah.
Sir, you're at number 18. Do you know the FSI of your current house?
Yes, I do. We're 34, 35, something like that. We're 34.7 or something like that. It's on the material. Actually, I've got it here. 35.7. Now,
thank you.
In our rebuild, or we topped up and went at the back a bit. So there's a few differences. First of all, we consulted. We spoke to all of our neighbors, had numerous.
Okay, yeah, I don't think we want to get into all of that. I just from a massing perspective, I wanted to get a feel for what I'm looking.
So we're bigger, but we have no height.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Mr. Marsden? And perhaps I'd like to hear maybe the appropriate speaker to respond to that, Andrew Watson, when he speaks in due course, as to addressing planning's memo where they previously were opposed and considered this overbuild and has now retracted that following the latest series of changes made by the applicant, as shown in our additional materials. So the next speaker is Christine Jaremko at 15 Van Dusen.
Christine, you've noted that you'd like to be on video while you speak. And as such, I've bumped you over to a quote unquote, a panelist. So you are able now to turn on your camera for viewing.
I'm not, can you hear me? Are you
Yes.
able to? Okay. I don't have to be on video. I thought everyone would be on video. So sorry, I'll just continue as I am, if that's okay. So my name is Christine Jaremko. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I live at 15 Van Dusen Boulevard. I've owned the property since 2011. 15 Van Dusen Boulevard is only a few feet to the east, like half a lot size, and across the street from 16 Van Dusen Boulevard on the south side of the street. I am a broker, owner of a real estate brokerage in the area that is now in the 42nd year of operation. I'm in my 27th year of practicing real estate. I introduced myself to one of the new owners of 16 Van Dusen Boulevard several months ago when I saw him on the street. I heard that he's a realtor, and I introduced myself to him as a fellow realtor, and I welcomed him to the neighborhood. If the applicant was sincere about having wanted to communicate with neighbors about the application, I would have been easy to find. I received no personal note in my mailbox or taped to my door. I received no email, no phone call from him or from any representative of his to discuss his application and extreme variances. I strongly oppose the requested height variance. The height variance requested will block the views of the trees in the backyards of the houses to the north. And the view of the proposed huge house on this 40-foot lot will be like looking, for me, will be like looking at a wall. Currently, I can see the treetops through the peaked roofs around the two-story houses north of the applicant's property on Brentwood South and Cliveden Avenue. Trees naturally play a pivotal role in the aesthetics and the spirit of the neighborhood. It is critical to appreciate that 16 and 18 Van Dusen Boulevard sit alone together, the only two houses in one tiny block on the north side of Van Dusen Boulevard between Cliveden Avenue and Brentwood Road South. The two 1.5-story houses bookending 16 and 18 Van Dusen Boulevard are on different streets. 82 Cliveden has the same lot size and shape as both 16 and 18 Van Dusen Boulevard. When you look at the map, 18 and 16 Van Dusen Boulevard and 82 Cliveden look like dominoes next to each other, all sitting the same way. However, 82 Cliveden is oriented to the east. So the front of the house at 82 Cliveden Avenue is on the long side or the west or the wide side. To visualize this, I would say imagine that the lot is 110 feet wide by 40 feet deep. The proposed height at 16 Van Dusen Boulevard will absolutely overshadow or loom over the property at 82 Cliveden Avenue and will obviously obliterate the sunshine in the afternoon and affect the owner's privacy. If built as proposed, I will live across the street from a large house with a high and wide flat roof that will block the current view of the trees to the north and the movement of light to my front yard and to 82 Cliveden Avenue. The proposed height of the application will be incongruous with the sightlines of the neighborhood. Dear committee members, again, 16 Van Dusen is only one of two houses on a very tiny short block, and the occupant of 82 Cliveden Avenue to the east will suffer greatly. The character of the neighborhood will languish as the height and size of the proposed application will permanently block the view of the trees for me and for anyone walking in the neighborhood and will diminish the movement of natural light. I respectfully ask the committee to refuse the application. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Jaremko. Thank you for your submission. Any questions for Mr. Remko before we move on to the next speaker? Okay, in which case we'll hear from Mr. Watson on behalf of TOCA.
Hello, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thanks for being able to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So you wanted to clarify something with me, Michael? You mentioned it earlier.
Yes.
What was that again?
No, what did I want you to clarify? Oh, just no, like just in your statement, just if someone should be responding to the community planning, the fact that they've switched their position, that originally they were opposed to the application, were recommending refusal, and have now provided a memo or an email saying that following the latest series of revisions made, that they have no further objections and retract their letter or their refusal recommendation. So I just thought if someone could respond. Obviously, the neighbors, we've had 3 letters where 3 of the speakers or letter writers write back and say, no, we still feel this is an overbuild. So I just wanted you to perhaps respond to that.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Okay, appreciate saying that. I'm going to let Ingrid cover that one point with regards to the planner. She's going to be speaking next. But I'll make one comment as well, sort of an indirect comment. But basically, the revision. The first revision came through the cutoff day from the applicant with regards to the change in the initial change in plans from the original one. So yeah, I'll just take you to a couple of different points that I wanted prepared to talk about today. I live at 76 Thompson. I'm like a couple blocks away. I'm the current chair of Thompson Orchard Community Association, and I think. What we want to acknowledge is the applicant did make some changes, which is good. But we continue to see that the plans from perspective of the bylaws is still too far away from the bylaws, and in fact, it doesn't represent the prevailing character of the neighborhood. And as you can see, the immediate neighbors are, very concerned. We're very, very concerned about the original plans and still concerned about the current ones. And obviously would like a further reduction from here. As a community association, TOCA is very active in working with applicants to find a mutually satisfactory variances and that we will not oppose. We do not try to oppose. We try to work with all applicants before the COA as much as possible, in which we want to preserve the character of the neighborhood. That's our goal. In the last 2 years, TOCA's worked with the following to make changes and not oppose any of the following developments that went to COA. 42 Van Dusen, 24, 39, 41, 60, and 64 Thompson, and 68 Brentwood. So we have written many letters in regards to those as well, but we did not directly oppose any of those developments. We worked with all the different owners in a significant and meaningful way and a good interaction with them. The community accepts development, but wants to ensure it is appropriate and reasonable. TOCA advised the applicant on November 7th that the community still has concerns with the current plans, the revised plans, and offered to meet with them to see if we could reach an agreement on a mutually acceptable variances. And we did not hear back at all. I want to remind the committee, one other key piece I want to mention here is the new Toronto Green Standard. I'm sure you're all seen it, version 4. So this build, it fits within that category because that started on May 1st this year. I think I want to highlight that grade standard in terms of the stormwater runoff. The cumulative impact of the proposed development, including removal of the full-grown tree in the backyard, plans to put in a pool, and the excessive and the lot coverage and wall and roof height will exacerbate the stormwater issue and will cause more runoff into Mimco Creek. And we've had stormwater issues and we have a flood zone in RD18 in our area of Thompson Orchard. In conclusion, we ask that the committee refuse this application.
Okay,
Thank you.
I have a question. So, you know, they're at 37% coverage, down from 45, whereas 33 is permitted. 37, you say is out of character for Thompson Park, for the area, 37% coverage. And then the other one, he's come down substantially, is from 0.77 to 0.68, where 0.45 is permitted. So you say these two items in particular, and then also the height and the front wall height, that's still out of character for the neighborhood. And you know, I would agree that TOCA, compared to some of the other neighborhood associations I've been involved or seen over the years, you don't exactly, you do pick and choose, and you don't oppose everything. Thank
you for saying that, Michael, and we agree with that. We're always willing to talk to applicants and immediate neighbors. We try to work with everybody.
Yeah, Mr. Eagleman had come first in with what he's proposing now. Originally, whether it would have been different, but that's the way the thing. So your position is it's still an overbuild. So, okay, if no one else has any questions for Mr. Watson, let's hear from the last speaker, Ingrid Van Vert at 28 Meadowcrest, and then we'll go back to Mr. Eagleman for his rebuttal.
Hello?
Hello.
I can be heard? Sorry.
Yes, you can. I can hear.
Thank you. My name, sorry, my name is Ingrid Van Wert. I live in Thompson Orchard at 28 Meadowcrest Road. I am on the TOCA board and I am on the development committee. Before I get to the substance of my talk, I just want to address a couple of the questions that have been raised. First, I believe, well, I can't see the names of the panel members, but a gentleman asked about John at 18, what his FSI is. It's 0.64. TOCA keeps data. We have extensive data on all of the applications that the Committee of Adjustment has approved. And so that information is available, and it's 0.64. And I think Michael asked if, you know, us to address the issue of planning having changed their position. And planning's position, we're disappointed that planning changed their position, but they're not definitive. TOCA has several times fought in front of the Committee of Adjustment and also at TLAB, where planning had approved the plans and we were successful in opposing them. I don't say that with any suggestion that TOCA is amazing, simply that planning is not the final word. You are the final word on whether or not this gets approved. One other thing I'd like to clarify is that there's been reference to only 3 letters having been filed in opposition to the current plans, but TOCA has many more letters of opposition. They weren't forwarded to the Committee of Adjustment because we were of the understanding that nothing would be posted after the cutoff date, which was last Thursday. These plans were provided after the cutoff date of last Thursday. And so we scrambled to try to contact as many people as we could of the original letters of opposition. We could not contact the counselor and do not know his position, but we did contact the majority of the people who had written, and we can say and can prove to the committee, if you would like us to forward this information, that the majority of the people who opposed originally are still opposed. Yes, there are only 3 letters on file. We have many more. So yes. I think that's important to remember.
No, if I can just interject, Ms. Van Vert, I agree completely. I just mentioned we did get 3 at last minute. Doesn't mean that those other, 26 are happy. Clearly not.
Well,
So
Okay, so I would like to break my point, my talk down.
About
Sorry.
those 26 people that they, whether I agree only a couple of people wrote in, but that I didn't mean to imply anything by that. So please move on.
Okay, well, no, I just wanted the committee to be clear that there is still a large number of people opposed.
Yes.
And that we can provide that information if requested. And that leads to my second point on process. The revisions were the most current plans have not been circulated to the neighborhood. Many of the people we couldn't contact are probably not even aware of the fact that there are revised plans. And we believe that this at a minimum means that this application should be deferred for proper consultation, given the level of opposition to it. But we believe on the merits, it should be denied completely. And that leads me to address the final issue that was raised and that you just raised with Mr. Watson, which is, are the variances being requested now that they've been reduced from the original application out of keeping or out of line with the prevailing character? And they 100% are. I'd like to just summarize them for you again. On the I'm going to divide them into what's being requested, what is permitted under the bylaw, and what is the average on the photos that the applicant has provided to you. The applicant provided 14 photos. These are of the most aggressive buildings they could find in the neighborhood in order to support their proposed development, and their own photos undercut this position. With respect to FSI, they are requesting 0.68. I've said that John next door is at 0.64. Everybody knows the permitted is 0.45. The average on their photos, which are the largest homes in the neighborhood, is 0.61. So significantly below what they are requesting. For lot coverage, they're seeking 37%. Permitted is 33. The average on their photos is 34.5%. So Mr. Eagleman said that 34.8% is the house if you exclude the ancillary structure at the back, but even the house is over the neighborhood average. And then with respect to roof height, they are seeking 9.1 meters, permitted is 8.5. And the average on the photos is 8.7 meters. And not only so these figures show that on each of these photos, they're well above average on all three variances, and they want all three variances together. There are only 2 of the 14 photos they provided that have all 3 variances. So this house, when built, and in addition to all of that, you have to consider the fact that it will have an almost flat roof. Mr. Eagleman suggested that the roof was the roof height would be imperceptible. That is untrue because of the significant wall height variances. There's very little peak. It will be a massive box-like structure, much larger than anything else in the neighborhood. That's why there's so much opposition. And that is why we believe that this application should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Van Berg? Members?
I have a question, if I may. Thank you for the clarification of the GFA for number 18, because that makes sense from visually what I'm seeing there. Would you by any chance know what the height is on that property?
I'd have to pull up the data, but between us, somebody that's speaking here knows that, I'm sure. Give us a moment on that.
No, well,
I don't have it at my fingertips. So.
I don't want to belabor it. It's not that germane, but I'm just curious because it's the FSI and the lot coverage that I'm most concerned about. But anyway, thank you.
But they have, well, an important point on the height coverage for 18 versus 16. And if any of you wish to do this, you could put the photos of 18 and 16 next to each other because the height, 18 is a high house. They did get a height variance, but they have a peaked roof. And therefore, it will not have the same box-like
Yeah, no,
quality.
I appreciate that. In fact, it
Yeah.
would be helpful to me in the revised drawings if the applicant had shown both houses in totality, the proposed and 18, but we didn't get that. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, let's go back to Mr. Eagleman for his rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, just while we're on the topic of 18 Van Dusen, I can clarify everything. They were approved for a lot coverage of 35.7%, an FSI of 0.64 times the lot area, a west side yard setback of 0.4 meters. They were also approved for a front and rear main wall height of 8.1 meters and a side main wall height of 7.6 meters. Those are just some of the variances. There are a couple as well. But anyway, in regards to the comments about not being consulted and the neighborhood consultation. So firstly, we consulted extensively with community planning staff. I've been in contact with community planning staff since as far back as early September. And I always advise my clients to consult with the neighbors, see if they're willing to support the proposal, and if not, make note of their concerns. In this case, I did exactly that. I advised my client to do so. I can't confirm or deny whether that has taken place because I'm not the owner, but I did advise him to do that. And in addition to that, I myself attended a meeting with Toka and Rob himself and discussed the proposal and the revisions that they would like to see with Toka. So I do not believe some of the comments were entirely true in what they were mentioning, because I did meet with Toka and they advised that they would like to see the variances more in line with the approvals within the neighborhood, and that's exactly what we did. And Toka, in regards to that, some of the neighbors are speaking to the average of approvals of the photos I provided. But I will note, I did not take photos of the most aggressive builds. I just went there and took photos of houses in the neighborhood that I thought looked similar to the proposal and likely had perhaps variances as well, but it is a random sample. And then after that, I added those comments about what variances were approved. But I can speak to the approvals in the broader neighborhood. In an area of 500 meters surrounding the property, there are 196 approvals. The average FSI of those 196 approvals is 0.63, but there are many that are above or similar to what we are requesting. The average of those 196 approvals for lot coverage is 36.98, and the average of approvals for height is 9.25 meters. So those are just some statistics for the committee to consider. And in regards to the dwelling itself, I mean, it is a two-story sloped roof dwelling, modest ceiling heights, and I believe the variances that we're asking for are very much in line with the existing character of the neighborhood. We made a number of revisions to try and satisfy the neighbors and both planning staff, and we did satisfy one of being planning staff. And just lastly, or in regards to my cover letter being misleading, I disagree with that statement. My cover letter clearly states that it was my understanding at the time of submitting that cover letter that the neighbors were still not satisfied, including the neighborhood association. That is clearly stated in my cover letter. So I'm not trying to be misleading at all. And just lastly, in regards to the plans, the revised plans being provided after the cutoff date, as the applicant, we are well within our right to provide plans after any time before the hearing date, so long as we're not increasing or worsening the variances we're asking for. If we're making reductions to the variances that we're asking for, then we can provide revised plans and revised zoning notice or waiver at any point. And and we did so in order to avoid a deferral of this application. So those are my comments, Mr. Chair. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eagleman. Thank you to all the speakers who weighed in here today. So we're now going to see committee members, if anyone has any questions for any of the speakers at this point, in particular Mr. Eagleman, if there's any questions. And otherwise, we have to take it into committee for a decision. We've been at this for about 40 minutes on this application. So thank you to everyone for putting the cards on the table as to what the situation is here. So any further questions for anyone, members? And if not, let's take it into committee for a discussion and/or motion. Mr. Kamarick?
I'd like to kick off the discussion. I just want to make some comments. The house next door at 18 is of importance to me because, as it was stated by the by the neighborhood, there's really only 2 houses on that block, and so the relationship of those 2 houses to each other is quite important. And I'm gathering that the massing that's being proposed now will be slightly larger than what's next door at 18, although it's not grossly larger. Also note that what's being proposed now is less than 3,000 square feet, so it's not a huge house, but this one is a very close one. It's unfortunate it actually didn't get deferred, and I'm almost tempted to do that because it's like we're almost there, but not quite. That's the way I'm feeling about it, and I'll leave that for others to comment and/or make a motion.
Okay, thank you. Any further comment or questions, like other members? We have spent 45 minutes on this application. I think it calls for a decision, and if everyone has their appeal rights. So again, we're in committee. Anyone, let me know when you're ready to make a motion. And by piping in, because all I see is Stan and myself.
Sophia, I'm prepared to pipe in. I'm share the concerns of the neighbors and the association in respect to this build. I'm concerned that it is a bit of an overbuild and not consistent with the character of the neighborhood. So I would move to refuse the application. I don't find it to be consistent with the forecast.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Reddick. Thank you for that motion. Do I have a seconder for that motion? And again, if you can call out, because I can't see everyone on the screen.
Stan, I'm going to second that because I think in totality, I think any one of these or any 2 or the 4 of these, I think could be considered minor, but in totality, I'm not sure if I believe the minor test fails, and I'll second it on that basis.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? And if I could see, I'm not in a grid view here, so if perhaps everyone can weigh in just and pipe in. Mr. Palmer, start with you, or
yeah, I'll agree with my colleagues on the refusal. I think it's the massing, the variances combined create a massing situation.
Okay, and I guess we'll hear from Mishi McCluskey.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I didn't put my hand up. I just I think the applicant made a fair attempt of reducing the variances. I know we've heard a lot of concerns today, but I think overall, I was willing to approve. But
okay, so and I agree with you, Ms. McCluskey. So the motion carries 3-2. The application is refused on a split decision. Thank you, David Eagleman, and thank you to all the neighbors and Mr. Watson, neighbors who weighed in here today. The application is refused. Okay, so we can move on to the next application. Item number 15 is 160 Islington Avenue. And it's an application to permit a music rehearsal studio use. And there are 3 variances. The musical rehearsal studio use is not a permitted use in this zone under the section 350-38A. Then there's a setback and no legal parking spaces, opposed to 70 being required. And what do we have? We have on this. Right, we have site plans, cover letter, supporting material. Planning is requesting refusal, unless I'm reading off. The transportation is looking for a deferral. If I'm reading the right application, because I had so many notes on 16 Van Dusen. Yeah, so that's right. Transportation would like a parking utilization, so we can deal with that off bat. It's transportation looking for a deferral, and so let's hear from the speaker on this. Is David Ashbourne. Looks like he is the only speaker, the agent for the applicant.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is David Ashbourne, and I'm the registered planner and authorized agent representing Rehearsal Factory, who is the owner and current operator of the property.
Oh, sorry. Can I just pipe in for a second? I'm thinking I'm on the wrong one. I'm just clarifying. Is community planning is looking for a refusal on this? Yes, they are. And transportation a deferral. So please deal with the issue of whether this matter should be deferred or whether the members will take an inference by that. So I guess we should deal with that issue first, sir. Are you willing to agree with transportation, and especially in light of the refusal from planning, to take an opportunity to have this matter deferred? You are the only.
At this time, Mr. Chair, we are not. I'd like to present our side of the case.
Okay.
All right, excellent. So I just want to highlight, so there are 3 variances at play here. The first is a music rehearsal studio permission. The second is for parking spaces, and the third is for setbacks. The latter of the 2 variances have existed since the building's construction in the late 1950s, and that includes the parking. So I just want to stress that point. The property is small at approximately 1,000 square meters in area and contains a 2-story commercial building with a GFA of approximately 2,300 square meters. The property and building have operated as a music rehearsal space known as Rehearsal Factory since 2000. Since the existing building's construction in the late 1950s, the property has operated commercially with no parking spaces located on site. The lack of parking spaces is a result of the existing building footprint, which takes up over 90% of the overall property. As noted, Mr. Chair, planning staff do not support this application, primarily due to the property being designated as apartment neighborhoods under the official plan. However, we want to affirm to the committee that the proposed music rehearsal studio use is considered a cultural and recreational facility in the official plan, and such use is permitted by the apartment neighborhoods designation. Moreover, a City of Toronto staff report dated January 2022 considers music rehearsal studio spaces to be a valuable community cultural use. The report, which I have appended to the planning rationale and which was adopted by City Council on February 2nd, 2022, recommends measures that the city can implement to increase, encourage, and protect music rehearsal space, particularly in the west neighborhoods of the city. This exact Rehearsal Factory location is highlighted in that staff report, where they state that the potential closure of Rehearsal Factory's Islington location would result in Toronto musicians losing access to over 50% of available rehearsal space in the city. Planning staff further state in their report that the property has been purposefully omitted from Bylaw 569/2013, as the present commercial zoning by the Etobicoke Zoning Code apparently conflicts with the official plan designation of apartment neighborhoods, and thus a zoning bylaw amendment is required in order to permit a rehearsal space on the property. Respectfully, Mr. Chair, this is a puzzling opinion by planning staff because, as I've stated previously, The proposed music rehearsal studio use is permitted by the apartment neighborhood's designation of the official plan. Additionally, although the property has not been integrated into bylaw 569/2013, the commercial residential zone of this bylaw directly equates in scope and intent to the commercial zone applied to the property in the Etobicoke zoning code. A rehearsal space use is not contemplated in the Etobicoke zoning code, whereas bylaw 569/2013 captures such a use under the performing arts studio, which is permitted as of right in the commercial residential zone. In other words, my client is simply requesting permission to operate a commercial use in a commercial zone. This request is not made in contravention of the purpose or intent of the official plan or the applicable zoning bylaw, and therefore satisfies Section 45(1) of the Planning Act without the need for a zoning bylaw amendment as suggested by staff. As also noted, Mr. Chair, transportation staff do not support the application and are recommending a deferral, primarily due to the lack of on-site parking. Again, this deficiency in parking is an existing condition from the 1950s, and there is physically no space for parking to be provided. Transportation staff have recommended payment in lieu of parking for the deficiency if the application is approved at the rate of $5,000 plus 5 times the land value in square meters for each of the 70 parking spaces that would be required. We estimate that it would cost our client in excess of $1 million to satisfy this request by transportation staff and to continue operation, despite the property operating successfully without parking for over 60 years. I believe that this is an unreasonable request by staff and one that would result in severe economic consequences for the current owner and or owners of the property in the future, and would certainly prohibit the use of the property for rehearsal space, which council has indicated they want to protect, particularly on this site. There is street parking on Islington directly in front of the property. Parking has never been an issue in over 2 decades of operation. In summary, the requested variances are minor in nature and simply seek to add the technical permissions for a music rehearsal studio use to the Etobicoke zoning code and to rectify existing conditions of the property that have existed for over 60 years. I also want to stress that this rehearsal space is truly the last of its kind. Without it, artists and musicians will be needlessly penalized as spaces for musical expression become totally extinct within the City of Toronto. Thank you very much for your time and consideration, and I'd welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ashbourne. So, parking issues, 60 years have been going on. The use you said since year 2000, so 22 years. So why are we here today? If it's been running for 22 years, what happened that you're making this, they made this application? Yeah, I see where they feel it's better to be dealt with by way of a zoning bylaw amendment or official plan amendment. You make the argument that it's a permitted use within the existing district zoning. So why are we here? What happened? You get an order to comply or someone complains? Why are we here 22 years after the use started?
My understanding, Mr. Chair, is that over the past several years, our client has attempted to rectify this issue via permitting. And at this point, they're looking to fully rectify it via variance, as there has been some issue dealt with the city that this is not a permitted use on the property. And they're looking to fully rectify this issue and move forward as a legal use.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, members, for Mr. Ashbourne, or is someone ready for a motion?
I have a question regarding the parking. I think what transportation is seeking is just to get an idea of volume. I think they were looking for a parking study, but it would have been helpful if the applicant could at least give us an idea of what kind of traffic the use generates. I note that there are at least 3 public parking lots in the immediate area, green P lots. So I'm not overly concerned about it, but it would be good to know, what kind of parking demand is actually generated by the use, and give us an idea on hours of operation for that.
Good question.
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and through you, Mr. Chair, the facility is quite large. There are 56 individual rooms used for rehearsal space. As I said, there's parking in front of the building, and there is surrounding private parking that people attending the facility can use. The other component that's important to know is that these 56
If I can
rooms.
interject for 1 second, you keep referring to the on-street parking on Islington. Is that restricted during rush hours?
To my knowledge, Mr. Chair, through you, Mr. Chair, I am not sure whether that's restricted during rush hour.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, again. So these rooms, these 56 rooms, can be rented on weekly and monthly basis. And therefore, the musicians who are actually utilizing these rooms do not need to continue to bring their equipment to the facility. Obviously, this neighborhood is very well supported by transit and, as noted, parking surrounding the area. So to our mind, this is not a concern in terms of parking.
That was a very good question and a very good answer. So it's a pretty, there's individual studios. I assume there have sound attenuation between each others and also on the street. What we don't have here is what you'd expect to find perhaps is a whole slew of objection letters saying, oh yeah, these guys, they're here, they're cause disturbance, they hang out, take breaks and all hours of the day and night. We don't have any of that here. No complaints about this use. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up. So any other questions for Mr. Ashburn? There is no one here in opposition other than the community planning letter and the transportation deferral issue. Again, the building's been there 60 years, use has been there 22 years.
I just had a comment. I know that transportation has noted that they were looking for parking utilization information because the recommendation was the maximum of the parking utilization or the 70 spots, whichever was lower. And so there's no indication of that I see in the application. So it's not necessarily millions to suggest, but if there was evidence of parking utilization that was less, transportation would be looking at payment in lieu of that. And I don't see that information in your application.
Well, they say that it's based on 70 parking spots. It would be over $1 million.
No, it says 70. It says
Doesn't it say
that it would be maximum utilization or 70 parking spots. If you look at the transportation memo.
Okay.
The lower of those two.
So if you could show that your utilization is less than that, you wouldn't be dinged for 70.
Yeah, if utilization was 10, then you'd be charged for 10. Yeah.
Anyway,
and there's no information about utilization.
That 56 studios if they're rented monthly or whatever, but the thing is, it's an existing situation. It's been going on for 22 years. That's what sort of convinces me that Anyway, thank you for that observation. Any other comments or observations, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion here?
I'd like to ask a question of staff, which we may or may not be able to get an answer to, and just a confirmation that this is a permitted use in an apartment zone.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I don't believe they're asking for, I think that they mentioned the official plan in apartment neighborhoods.
I see.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarify the committee member's question, just to reiterate, so the use within the official plan that within the apartment neighborhood designation is, just bear with me here.
Sorry, with respect to the actual zoning bylaw, that's the first variance that they're asking for.
Correct. Just to reiterate, the official plan designation is apartment neighborhoods. We are seeking music rehearsal studio, which is a cultural and recreational facility use as defined by the official plan, which is permitted within the apartment neighborhoods designation. There is no use within the Etobicoke zoning code. It was never contemplated, and therefore we are seeking a technical use permission through the Etobicoke zoning code. But as I said, the more recent 569/2013 bylaw in the commercial residential zone equates this to a performing arts studio, which is permitted as of right.
I just in with respect to the comment made by Ms. Ruddick, I agree. I see it here now. It says park utilization study this captures the maximum anticipated, so it would still be $5,000 times 5 times the land value for each of the 70 spots. So with 56 studios, even if it was 10 spots or 20 spots, it's still $50,000. I don't think the applicant would be able or willing to make a payment of 50 to 100 and then notwithstanding $1 million. So I think that's a bit of a red herring. The applicant's saying we're on a city street. There's public transportation, there's street parking, there's parking lots. The members bring their own instruments. They don't have to bring their drums or their bass or even smaller instruments. They can leave them there. So I think that's a bit of a red herring. I don't think that the applicant's prepared, obviously can't get any parking and would be in no position to pay for 70 or even for 10 parking spots.
Well, potentially the applicant could get parking by securing parking spots from Green P or other private lots that are in the area. So there is a way to deal with that. I'm not going to hold them to that. I mean, I'm inclined to approve this. I just found it a little bit disappointing that the applicant, comes to the committee with no usage information whatsoever in terms of parking demand. And for that reason, I'd be inclined to defer it. But I don't want to defer it because I don't want to penalize them and having to pay for that. So
yeah, I don't see what it would accomplish, because it's going to show that they don't have so if it shows that there are 10 people coming every day or 20 people or 100 people every day, they're not prepared or able to make, and it's something that's been going on for 22 years with no complaints from the community.
I get that. And on that basis, I'm going to move a motion to approve.
Okay, thank you, Kamerick, for that motion. Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll move to second.
Thank you, Ms. McCluskey. All in favor? I can't see the hands, so please call it. And I'm not in a. Mishy's in favor, and the second. Bill Palmer. Neil?
Yeah, I'm in favor. Yes, sorry.
Okay, and Sophia?
I'm opposed.
Okay, so the motion carries 4-1. The application is approved. Thank you, Mr. Ashburn. Thank you to the members. Okay, so that's item number 15. So we have a few more left until we finish the morning session. Next application is item number 16.
Mr. Chair.
30.
May I interrupt for a moment? I'd like to call on the area resident for item number 18, Roy Brown. I see you've joined the call, but you haven't authorized the use of your microphone. So if you'd like to speak when it's time for item number 18, 1830 Lawrence Ave West, you'll need to log out and log back in and authorize the use of your microphone. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Adam. Okay, item number 16, 30 Amesbury. It's a detached dwelling with an attached garage. We have a cover letter and supporting materials. There were 12 variances. Urban Forestry requesting condition number 3. Planning is looking to requesting that we refuse variances 6 and 7 for the proposed building height on this application and approve the balance of the variances. And transportation has no objection.
Mr. Chair, there was a subsequent planning email in your additional materials for this one.
Oh, yes. Okay, I have it highlighted here. Additional materials. We have a revised notice. Planning is satisfied. The refusal is retracted. So the height 11.21 to 9.65. So their refusal report no longer apply, or their refusal report on those 2 variances, I guess, no longer apply. Sorry, yeah, that's that. Oh, yeah, and Councillor Nunziata is in support as well as other neighbors. Okay, so the speaker is Graham Barrett, and Councillor Nunziata is registered to speak as well, to buttress her position in her letter of support. Mr. Barrett?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members. Sorry, my audio cut out for a moment there. Graham Barrett, SGL Planning and Design, 1547 Bloor Street West, agent for the owners of 30 Amesbury.
Okay. So planning staff originally wanted the variances 6 and 7, refused. You've now provided a revised notice, and planning is now satisfied with what you have before us.
Yes, that's correct. Staff did initially have some concerns, and it's because zoning had made an error with their measurement for maximum dwelling height under the former North York zoning bylaw. So we had an updated zoning review prepared, and that should change variance number 7 on the public hearing notice. It should not read maximum permitted building height is 8.8 meters. Proposed dwelling will have a height of 11.21. It should read the proposed dwelling will have a height of 9.65 meters. And that has addressed staff's concerns.
Okay. Are you okay with the urban forestry proposed condition 3, I assume?
Yes, absolutely.
The councillor has appended to her letter of support, I think it was something like overwhelming support, wholeheartedly support. She's attached a petition of 4 neighbors at 32, 41, 39, 2 signatures from 39. So 3 neighbors appended to that, her letter of support. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Barrett at this time? And if not, let's hear from the councillor, Councillor Nunziata. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, just briefly, I do support the planning recommendation and support of the residents. As you know, you did receive the petition. So I'm just asking the committee to support the application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillor, and congratulations on your reappointment.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Councillor Nunziata, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion? Okay, I can't see anyone's hand, so if someone wants to weigh in, they can pipe up verbally.
Palmer, I'm ready to move a motion here. The variances as revised appear minor in nature and meet the 4 tests in the Planning Act. Therefore, I move approval subject to urban forestry condition number 3.
Okay, thank you. Seconder for that?
Stan, I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Can't see everyone. If staff can let me know if everyone's, it's probably unanimous, I would imagine.
It is.
Unanimous. Okay, thank you. Have your approval. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Be well. Okay, our last application of the morning is item number 1830 Lawrence Avenue West. It's an application to permit a front yard landscaping deficiency. There is 1 variance, a total of 20.84%, whereas 37.5% of the front yard must be provided soft landscaping. Looks like a deficiency of about 15 square meters. Speaker for this application is M. Arshad Siddiqui, and as well we have Mr. Brown, the neighbor 2103, who is going to be logging back in and authorizes use the microphone. So let's hear from Mr. Siddiqui.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon. This is Arshad, architect and authorized agent from C Architecture. The property.
Before I go on, I didn't finish finish introducing. So planning is looking for a refusal of this application. And I believe you've revised it now to it's now at 28.96. So the question is whether community planning, now that you've increased it to 20.96, is still okay. Do we have any confirmation that planning is now satisfied or not satisfied? Perhaps that question is for you or for staff. because their objection letter was before you made the change, correct? And please let us know how you made that change.
Yeah, I was in discussion with the planner and he was not satisfied with the revised percentages and wanted us to comply with the zoning bylaw. But I requested to proceed with the minor variance so we can bring this up to committee that the property is subject to easement or right of way on one side. So that removes the front yard area, which could be landscape. And if we exclude that calculation from the front yard, then we are complying with the zoning bylaw. So including an easement into the front yard is making the percentage look bigger, but otherwise, if we exclude the easement, the front yard soft landscape meets the required 37.5% of front yard. The other option could be we can increase the soft landscape area in some of the portion. I don't know if I can share my screen.
You cannot.
I cannot. So there's a portion of a small portion of hardscape that we can convert into soft landscape, but that will still pose the initial concern of bylaw officer visiting the site, finding a car parked in the front yard on the hardscape. So we can still maintain that and find a way to meet the soft landscape requirement. So I wanted to bring this topic to committee's attention or City of Toronto that on a high-speed road when you're backing off your car is really a problem. So so these applications will come and we have to find a better alternate than restricting.
Hello.
Hello, was I audible? Sorry. So I was saying that the front yard could be added with some landscape, a plant to hide that hardscape, and if the car is parked over there, or taking using the front yard hardscape to make a 3-point turn to have the to be on to have a safe exit on the Lawrence Avenue or a high speed road, it is easier for the driver. So that is why we request this deficiency in percentage for the soft landscape be considered minor and be approved.
Okay, sir, I just found my own answer to my question that I was asking you by reading the planning report, which in fact is dated November 3rd, and is after you made the changes. They do acknowledge that you improved that your front yard landscape to 28.96 from what it was originally here at 20.84. So they do acknowledge, that was my question. Are they now satisfied? The answer is very clear that they are not satisfied. They're still not happy with the 28.96. They don't believe the front yard has said there haven't been any front yard parking, no approvals regarding front yard soft landscaping. City planning staff has determined the loss of front yard landscape due to the vehicle turnaround parking space and walkway does not respect and reinforce the prevailing character of front yards for properties containing residential dwelling units along this stretch of Lawrence Avenue West. So the question is, and they're also concerned with an effect on drainage. But so the question is, although it's a busier street, they're feeling that it doesn't justify this this turnaround parking space walkway, this excess of landscape deficiency at the 28th following your change. So that's the answer. At a 29, almost 29%, they're still not happy as it's required to be 37.5. So you have a negative planning, even notwithstanding your attempts to improve the situation. Members, any questions for Mr. Siddiqui, or is someone ready for a motion? Oh no, we have Mr. Brown.
I have a question, Mr. Chair, but it's not for the speaker.
Okay, we have a neighbor. Yeah, we have a neighbor. He's at 2103 Lawrence. So do you have a question for the speaker first before we go to the neighbor?
No, I have a question for yourself. I believe we had a potential notice issue on this item, and I just want to, I think we should address it before we go forward.
What's the notice issue?
On the original notice, I believe staff pointed this out to us and they added material last night.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there was an email sent. The original notice, I'll just bring it up. The original notice had the right percentage for the required soft landscaping, but there was some issue as to that easement area, and then the numbers were redone, and the actual required area is 60.63. If you look at the revised sheet in your additional materials, you'll see that the difference between what went out and what the reality is was what went out was 32.35 square meters required. The actual requirement is 60.63 square meters.
But the percentage is correct.
But the percentage is correct, and that's
Percentages are correct.
That's right. So it's up to the committee whether they feel that this is typo or technical, and if you give us direction, we can change the 32.35 to 60.63 in any decision and the minutes.
Okay, I would personally think, from my experience, that this is most people are going to look at the percentage, and there was no. I don't think there was anyone who would have piped up who didn't pipe up based on it not being 60 odd square meters and 30, and because the percentage is correct, so everyone knew that the percentage was high. And given the fact that community planning is still opposed, even now that it's been further reduced, and that's the required as opposed to the actual provided at 20. So the difference on the original notice does a further notice been circulated as well, Phil?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so it's correct in the revised notice though, which now is at 28.96. And the correct in that one, although no one saw it, the 37.5 is converted to the right actual meters squared in the 60s.
Correct. So the numbers that are in your revised sheet are the actual numbers that.
If other members feel we have notice issue, perhaps we should have dealt with that at the outset. I apologize. So I personally feel we can proceed on this, and we still don't know how the decision is going to go, but I don't think there'd be anyone that's been prejudiced by this. Anyone else have an opinion?
I would concur. I just wanted to put it on the table.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I missed that one. Okay, so we still have an applicant well, first of all, thank you. Now let's go to Mr. Brown, I guess, unless someone has any questions specifically for Mr. Siddiqui. Let's hear from Brown, the neighbor at 2103 Lawrence. So that's quite the distance away. So we'll hear from Mr. Brown what his view and position is on this.
I'm not sure where I'm speaking. You're asking me to speak to the right file. I'm speaking to file number A0483/EYK, which is at 2105 Lawrence West.
Mr. Chair, that's item 20 this afternoon.
Yes, I believe so. It is this afternoon.
So he's been on my speakers list. He's been put in with item number 18. So we can move him back down to I see that the first second application, Mr. Prez's application on 2105, he's right next door. So apologies, but he is in the wrong spot, staff. He's listed on a speaker on item number 18, which is why Adam interjected to get him to log back on. So our apologies for that.
Our apologies for making you listen to all of this morning.
Yeah. Come back this afternoon, Mr. Brown. Okay, so Mr. Brown is not a speaker on this, so we don't have another speaker. So any further questions for Mr. Siddiqui, or are we ready for a motion? Community planning is still opposed to the coverage variance.
Yeah, Palmer, I got a couple questions. So, sir, the area of the easement, is that a paved area currently, and that's why it's skewing the soft landscaping percentage?
Sorry, am I audible now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, so this is a asphalt driveway, an access by some legal institute that it will be provided an access to. It will be used as a right of way by the adjacent properties which have a front elevation on the other road. It's basically a corner.
Okay, so it's a paved area, so it sort of skews your percentage of what
Yeah,
you're soft in the front
we
yard.
lose like 40 square meters on that easement, so that makes it difficult to meet this soft landscape.
Okay, so that's one question. Second question, is this an existing situation with the area that's not landscaped right now immediately in front of the house? It's right now
Yes,
it's currently.
it is an existing situation. Yeah.
Okay. Would you be willing to change that to sort of permeable pavers or something like that to lessen the drainage situation?
Actually, it is currently a permeable pavement. Open grid pavements, pavers are there, so it allows for the water infiltration, but not as a soft landscape. But it is
Okay, it's better than strict pavement. Okay, and it's not used for parking, it's used for turning around.
Yeah, so my suggestion was to put a traffic signage there and to make everyone aware that this will not be a parking spot anytime. So if that was the concern of bylaw officer or City of Toronto, because providing a three-point turn is safe.
Yeah, it's better than backing out onto a busy road. No, I can see on your site plan that you got the big no parking sign. I couldn't figure out what that was, and now I understand. You've got it pointed directly at where the access to that area is.
Yeah, so then everyone using the driveway, the tenant or the owner, they will know that they don't have to park here.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. I'm just looking here, so I'm looking at the report again. The fact that it went from 20.84 to 28.96 is not a result of any change, only due to the reinterpretation by the city building division. So I guess they're considering that hardscape issue. So that's where we're at. We're 28. A city, notwithstanding Lawrence, I guess, is a busy street. I guess they're saying that there's no. Sir, Mr. Sneaky, are there any other neighbors that have a similar situation for a turnaround?
Not the adjacent neighbor that I see.
Character front yards for properties containing potential along this stretch in Lawrence. So that's what they're saying. It's not compatible. No one else has done this. There are other residences, and I guess you have to. I've always wondered on busy streets, I guess, how do you back out? I guess maybe you back in and then you can see to drive out frontwards. But it does say no parking. So that's the issue before us. We have a negative planning report and we have your explanation. Any other questions, or is someone ready to weigh in with a motion?
I'd like to do a motion. And perhaps I can just do a little bit of background before I do my motion. There's only 2 residential properties on this block. The other property on this block is commercial. Directly across the street from this property is commercial. It is a busy street, as noted. Further down the block towards the west, there are other properties you can see on Google that have either widened or turning radiuses or hammer turns along Lawrence. So I disagree with planning on that. There are others that have this situation. They may not be legal, but they're there. And I understand from a safety perspective why that's important. So I'm going to move approval, subject to a no parking sign being placed there, and that spot, should someone park in that spot, will be an infraction with regards to boulevard parking.
Mr. Kamar, thank you for that motion. Just want to clarify one thing you said. You imposing a condition of a no parking sign, because I'm not sure Barb would weigh in and say there's no one to enforce that. You can't impose a condition that can't be enforced, but
it can be enforced. It's called boulevard parking.
Okay, so the question is, it would otherwise be something that they could ticket for if it wasn't there, because I don't think we can.
Correct, because I mean, if you put in a parking pad on the city portion or on your portion without a permit,
Yeah.
You're parking in the, we're not creating a legal parking spot.
Right.
That's what I'm trying
All
to say.
I'm trying to say is I don't think you want them necessarily, perhaps we can hear from Phil in Barb's absence, imposing a condition to install a
No parking sign. Fair enough. No.
I agree with you, Mr. Chair. Some alternate wording for not the requirement for the sign, but for no parking in the Hammerhead turnaround area will be permitted.
Perfect.
Like that. But in Barb's absence, I will note it's difficult to enforce because people will do what people do, and there are no rules other than the ones that are on the public right of way.
Right, but so if you don't have a sign, because we can't impose it a condition, it's not parking, but we can rely on municipal enforcement to tag and tow cars that may park there.
I mean, that's fair enough. It comes down to the neighbors, right? If the neighbors don't like it, they'll phone to have it enforced.
Yeah. The only thing I was going to say that there seems to be a whole bunch of houses. You're right. There's only the one property in this block on that side of Jane, but across the other way, Hearn, it looks like there's a whole, what I can see on our location map, there's at least 6 houses, looks like residential there. So maybe, I don't know if they say it exists, but it doesn't. It exists, but it may not be legal. So on those, I don't know if those on Hearn have that. So you made your motion. I guess we're waiting. We need to have someone to second it. So we've now reworded your proposed condition that we're clarifying that we're not creating a parking spot by giving this approval. Do we have a seconder for Mr. Kramer's motion? Okay. All in favor? We have to, I don't have visuals, so we have to, can you please, Sophia? Sorry? Unanimous?
We're all in favor.
Okay, so it's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Siddiqui. You're done. Mr.
Thank
Brown.
you, Chair. Thank you, committee.
Okay, it is now 1:06. Return at 2:15, staff. Is that permissible? You give you enough time to do your sound check?
Mr. Chair, why don't we make it an even 1:30?
2:30, right?
Sorry, 2:30.
2:30. Okay, we'll see everyone back here at 2:30. Have a good lunch.